Hello, my friend. This is the Mind's Gym podcast with Brandon Bickmore, your turbo lover. I want to sincerely thank you for listening. And the reason I started this podcast was to give back and let you know that if you are struggling with your thoughts and mental health, I promise you there is a way out, and that would be in, if you're willing to do the work. Please enjoy this episode. Hello, friends. This is Brandon Bickmore, your turbo lover. The Mind's Gym podcast is found another human being to interview. Lucky me. Talked to a young man that I met about, I'm going to say it was probably 7 or 8 years ago, 2015 or 16. This guy showed up at one of my monthly get-togethers, a group that my mom and I run, people that are struggling with their human minds, struggling with anxiety, depression, or just stuck in general. This individual showed up, was struggling, kind of going through his midlife crisis, which he likes to call a midlife awakening. And he and I have since touched base, went to lunch the other day, and we decided to be on each other's podcast. He has a podcast, and which he'll be interviewing me on. And today I am going to interview him and kind of see where this thing goes. But this gentleman's name is Shawn Feurer. He's a Universal Mindset Disruptor. He's got 25 years experience, former business coach, now doing transformative mindset mentor. Shawn focuses on revolutionizing thinking patterns to foster freedom, abundance, joy, and love in his life. His mission is to help individuals transform unproductive habits and shift mindsets to achieve their dreams, epitomized by his motto, enjoy the ride. He has a blueprint he calls specializing, or what's it called?
Inner Blueprint.
Inner Blueprint, which is a leadership development program where Shawn offers tailored solutions for financial growth, relationship enhancement, and overall wellness across the U.S. and Canada, and at the heart of his philosophy, change begins within. Guided by the principle, tell me what you want, and I'll show you how to get it. Shawn stands as a partner in growth, ushering in a life of limitless possibilities. And Shawn and I are likely we're similar in age. He's a couple years younger than me. We kind of both had our midlife crisis within a year or two of each other. I'm a couple of years older than him, so maybe I had it 2 years before you did, and then you showed up at my group because you were in pain.
Yes, thanks for leading the way.
So this will be an interesting conversation that Shawn and I will have. We share a lot of similar interests. I've been doing some consultation with human beings on their minds for sure for the last 10 years, but I've been helping a few people in the recent past of doing some consulting and helping them with their businesses. So Shawn and I's interests are quite aligned.
They are for sure.
Quite a bit. So it's nice to have Shawn on, and we're going to kind of hear his history and his story and his life and see why he had a meltdown or a melt up.
A melt up for sure. Yeah, it was a meltdown for a little while, but out of every bad thing you think happens, some goodness will come, I promise.
Yeah, so Shawn definitely is going to have some interesting thoughts for us today. So excited to have you on, and it was so nice to have lunch the other day and meet up and touch base again. And
yes, thank you, and thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to share a little bit of my story, and yeah, it was really fun for me to reconnect with you, not in crisis, right? Because last time I saw you, I always say I was sick, broke, and all alone, right?
Yeah.
The 3 areas that I measure with my clients is finances, health and wellness, and relationship with self. And if we said there was a scale 1 out of 10, I was probably a 2 out of 10 on all 3 when we first met.
Yeah.
I was in it for sure.
Yeah. It's what we do. It's a cycle here.
Yes.
The world kind of teaches us out of ourselves.
Yes.
They forget that crucial part of self-care that we're not very good at.
Yeah. And that's, we were kind of talking to lunch the other day. That was my midlife awakening, was I realized I was putting too much effort on the outside world, both financially, looking for validation from stuff and trying to give away to people what I didn't have, which was self-love and self-care. So yeah, a part of my shift was, hey bro, you better take care of yourself a little bit. And in doing so, created some rifts in my business relationships, my personal relationships, and set me on that downward spiral towards the awakening.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love the one thing that you mentioned in here too, is like, tell me what you want and I'll show you how to get it. One of my favorite things is to tell my children and everybody I sit and counsel with is, man, you got to ask for what you want.
Yes.
That's so key and crucial. If you don't ask, you're never going to get it.
Never. And giving yourself permission to ask, and we both know this from working with individuals, it's hard. People don't like to ask. Yeah. At some level, when they're in good, they're like, I should just be grateful. I shouldn't ask for more, right?
Yeah.
And I think, part of my midlife awakening was I was in really good for a while, got comfortable, and then I wasn't good anymore. It sneaks up on you. Like, and in that tell me what you want, that comes from my mentor, Bob Proctor. He used to always say, if you're going to doubt anything, Shawn, doubt your limits. And if you can think of it and put your mind to it, hold it in your mind, hold it in your hand. And it's so funny because those are so cliche, and I heard them for years, and I thought I'd practiced them. In fact, I remember waking up, in about 2014, about the time I hit rock bottom, and from the physical world, you would have said I was winning, right? I had all this stuff on the outside, house, business, family, but I didn't have it on the inside. I did not have it. I was compensating on the outside, trying to fill what I now call a little black hole of lack. I wasn't enough. That's one thing, Brandon, we haven't talked about this, but when I work with people, everybody has 20, 30, 40, 50 key self-limiting beliefs, things that are holding them back in different areas. But all of us have one in common, and it's not enoughness. We're looking to be enough. And we try and find it professionally. We try to find it personally. And it's really sad when you wake up one day and say, I just want to be enough who I am. I just want to show up powerfully as me and have that be enough. And that wasn't possible 10 years ago. And today, I just show up as me. Not everybody likes me. Not everybody loves me. That used to hurt me. I used to want everyone to like me and love me. But now, and my beautiful wife, Caitlin, she says, if they don't like you, Shawn, that's an issue them, not an issue.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's so hard. I was raised as a people pleaser, and still to this day, it's so hard when you feel like you've disappointed somebody.
Yeah.
And yet you work so hard to make sure that you showed up as the kind, fair, and do the right thing. And
loving, yeah.
Still human beings that are still going to struggle with whatever meat suit they're looking at.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is. And, again, too, we try, and sometimes, like with my 4 adult children, dad is my number one title. I love being a dad. And when I was a young dad, I realize now I was trying to get love back for my kids because of my lack of self-love. And I wanted to be the good dad. I thought I had good intentions, but in hindsight, it's like, man, you were a sad sucker looking for these 4 little kiddos to supply you with love by saying, thank you, Daddy. You make us so happy, Daddy. I love it now. This many years later, I've got 4 20-somethings, and when they call me, I don't need anything from them, right? I don't need validation. I just have enough self-love that I try. And again, we're always a work in progress, but I try to just pour love on them and still support them. Still, financially, it's a challenging world economically for young adults right now. And so I try and support them financially. But the most important thing is just show up with love and not needing love from them.
Yeah.
Still like it. Still love it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We still have an ego.
Yes.
We got a stroke every once in a while.
Yes.
It's tough, though. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing and your childhood. I believe your dad left you at a young age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of walk us through that experience and tell us what you can about that and how that's kind of affected your now.
And it's funny, my dad left a couple times before I was 5, and I knew it affected me, but I never realized how much it affected me until I was having my midlife awakening. But I was born into a beautiful family on both sides. Born and raised in Utah. Both of my grandparents were pretty well-known figures in the Murray. Anyone who's familiar with the city of Murray here in Utah. My grandpa was a barber, Von Shields, Chet and Von's barber shop on Vine Street, and very well-known, very well-liked. My biological grandfather, Cal Gillen Sr., was the police chief of Murray for years, stake patriarch in the Mormon religion, so I was born into this family. And, hindsight, I can see, from 2 to 5 years old, I thought I was in this amazing family. And my mom and dad just did not. They were high school sweethearts that were like fire and ice. They didn't. I remember lots of fights as a young kid. My dad left when I was 2. Came back, they gave it another whirl and didn't work. And fortunately, we got my baby sister out of the deal. He left for the second time when my little sister was 6 months old. But I found myself at 6 years old. And again, this is hindsight looking back, but what was supposed to be the perfect life with both parents, with these amazing grandparents. At 6 years old, my dad's side of the family was cut out of my life. I was adopted by my stepdad who came into my life at 6. And that whole other side of the family, that amazing grandpa, I didn't get to know him growing up. I didn't get to know my dad. Like, my mom cut all the pictures of him out of it. Once I was adopted by my stepdad, that part of my life was removed completely. So, and again, shit happens. We all go through things like this. Everybody has something in their childhood that's difficult and challenging. And I moved on. I had this amazing, Ralph Feurer came into my life. He was a siding contractor, just starting a home improvement business when he met my mom. He was a straight A student of the U. He dropped out to marry my mom. Funny story. He actually, he was a couple years younger than my mom, and he was going to the U and was going to the U with my cousin. And my cousin kept saying, "You got to date my aunt." And when Ralph used to tell the story, he's like, "I don't want to date your aunt. Can I date your sister? I don't want to date your aunt." But then he got set up and went out, and he's like, "Holy shit, your aunt's hot, and she's young." So they got married, and Ralph was the ultimate logical man. Like, he brought business sense. He taught me about integrity, about doing the right thing. He was, fully devoted to my mom. He loved her more than I've ever seen a human being love another person. She could do no wrong. And my mom, I love her. She was a little crazy, right? And he loved her crazy. And he taught me how to treat a woman. He taught me how to be loyal, and forever grateful. And I'm speaking in past tense. They both left us. We'll talk about that because they both left us way too early, kind of about the time of my midlife crisis thing. But yeah, so a little bit of a rough start, but Ralph comes into our life. Me and my mom were on welfare for a little while. I was wearing hand-me-downs of all my friends in my circle. So definitely left an impression of increase, or an impression of like scarcity on me. Not enough, not enough me, not enough money, not enough of anything. But Ralph came in. I ended up doing really well in school. I was always a smart kid, so did well in school, played sports, was, I guess, what you'd call popular, had lots of friends, was involved in student government. And as I grew up, Ralph's business grew. So we went from being, very, very middle class to doing a little bit better. Went to college at the U, was working full time in the family business, and just, transferred into the family business as I graduated college. I met my kid's mom in high school. We dated for a couple years, and once we both graduated, got married. I'm kind of going to the story here for you, but this
all right. Keep going.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, in my mindset work, we talk about programming, right? Our subconscious mind runs about 95% of our day. And I was given a program as a young child: go to school, get a college degree, marry a pretty girl, build a house, have some kids, and build a beautiful life. And I did a pretty good job with that program. There's a lot of pieces missing to that, and the program's a little different now, but that's what I did. And so I ran that program for about 20 years. Had success in the business, had 4 amazing kids, built a couple beautiful homes, really was living what you would call the programmed American dream, right? Making decent money, good relationships, no health challenges. Life should be good, right?
Sure. You would think.
You would think, right?
You're doing everything you were instructed to do.
Yes. I ran the program. I'm good at taking marching orders, and I took them, and I ran with them as far as I could.
And then you hit your midlife awakening at age 40. Tell me a bit about that. What happened?
Yeah, that's so interesting. And at the time I thought all these things were happening to me. I bought my first house when I was 20, was always really good with money, with finances. And between 07 and 09, I made some mistakes. I had a house that we were living in that I was going to sell and use to build this bigger house. I got talked out of selling it and held on to it. And long story short, I broke ground on, multi-million-dollar house in May of 07. And I'm in the home improvement business directly tied to interest rates and construction and the housing bubble, and got my butt kicked.
Yeah.
Got my butt kicked.
Along with a lot of the other world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
what happened? 07, 08, you're building a new home, trying to hold on to your other house.
Yeah. So I had to make the decision. Do I let the new house go, or do I give the old house away and try and make the new house work? And so I gave the old house away. We lowered the price almost $200,000 from what I thought I was going to get out of it. We sold it. I moved into the new house. I had a new construction one-time closed loan, but because of the issues with this, I stalled construction, ended up in a mess. My loan expired. There's a housing, and so they literally were going to bump me to like an 8 or 9% interest rate on almost $1 million loan. So I'm looking at an $8,000 house payment. I now have zero income coming in from my home improvement business because we are slashing left and right, cutting benefits, cutting employees, trying to pull back fast enough. I mean, that recession hit the construction and home improvement world so hard, we couldn't react fast enough. And I ended up in a mess. I ended up basically unemployed in my own business with a huge mortgage, had exhausted all my savings to, make things work up to that point. So, yeah. And in hindsight's 2020, I should have let it go. All my neighbors did, anybody else that I knew, and I held on to it until 2013. I'd never not paid a bill in my life. I'd never gone backwards, and I was stubborn, and my ego was strong. And I said, I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to willpower my way through it. I'm going to get out of this mess. I created the mess. I'm taking accountability. I couldn't clean it up.
Wow.
Yeah, I got my loan modified, so the payment was about half of what it could have been.
Yeah.
And that expired in 2013, and that's when I had no choice. I'm like, I can't make a double house payment. I mean, I barely scraped through these few years. And, my marriage to my first wife, we had a good marriage, but things had started to go a little south as we moved into this house, and the financial pressure just put so much stress on a relationship that my business has kind of fallen apart. My personal finances are a mess, and now my personal relationships are following suit with that. So when I had that moment, and I live in Draper, Utah today. I moved to Draper in 95 when I first got married. There's a roundabout on 13th East by the Draper Park, and my house that I short sold was off 13th East there. And I was driving to my office one morning, and I'd been crying. I mean, I'd literally sat in the church parking lot at the end of my neighborhood, not wanting to go to my office because I wasn't making any money, not wanting to go home because nobody wanted to listen to me complain about how broke and sad I was. And I got on 13th East, and Imagine Dragons has a song called It's Time. One of my favorite songs to this day. And I entered the roundabout on 13th East and Pioneer Road, and I got stuck in the roundabout, crying, listening to It's Time. And my higher self, my inner child, I would say, said, Shawn, you got to make some changes, bro. You're going to end up, and I did have dark thoughts, right? At that time, I had a $2 million life insurance policy that was past the suicide clause. And I definitely thought about that. I definitely was like, you know what, dude, you created this mess. You got a wife and 4 kids that are struggling because of your poor financial management, which in reality, that's a lot of self-blame. Nobody could have predicted what happened. I did what I'd done 3 times on houses and come out a winner. So, but I was in victim mode, beating myself up. And yeah, I'm going around that roundabout. And I finally pulled out of it. And I was like, I got to leave the family business. I can't, this isn't working for me, and part of that, and it's funny, and I've seen this with lots of individuals I work with now and in myself, sometimes we have to have the heat turned up on us like I did to reevaluate life, to reevaluate what's important. My stepdad, Ralph, who raised me, was an amazing father. He was a good business partner, but he was very negative. He was a doomsdayer. He always talked about the end of the world. I'd try and put together 5-year business plans, and he'd tell me it wouldn't matter. We're going to be running for the hills in 6 months because the world's going to end. So as I'm driving to work that day, I'm like, okay, I got to take some financial pressure off. I don't like being partners with my dad. I wanted to be my dad and love him and not be mad at him all the time for the frustrating things in the business. So I met with him, decided to leave the family business, was starting to consider divorce, thinking this, we'd been with counseling for a while. And so the first step I did was walk away from the family business. As I did, my dad had a stroke. I was literally out of the business for 6 months. We were working out payment terms and he went down. Just to weave this in, and I say God really wanted to see how strong I was. My mom at this time was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at 60 years old. If you saw my mom, man, and through all my life, she was my rock. She was the one thing that was always there for me. She loved me. She supported me. I could do no wrong. And now she's losing her mind. I mean, the first phone call was she got lost in Salt Lake. She was downtown and couldn't find her way back to Riverton and called my dad in a panic attack. I don't know where I am. I don't know where I am. So I've got her with Alzheimer's, him having stroke, my finances are a mess, my marriage is a mess. I'm just like, oh. And I'm a big believer we create our own reality. So now I'm going, dude, how did you create this mess? Like, what did you do? What did you do?
That's a good movie you've put together.
Yeah.
All of that, though, pushing you to your rock bottom, was almost essential for your awakening.
I'm so grateful for all of it.
Right.
So grateful for all of it. Everything that happened for me then, right? I was thinking it was happening to me, and I did a lot of, dear God, I love you, God. Why are you doing this to me? What did I do to deserve this? And now I say, thank you, God, for giving me a test that you knew I could pass, even when I didn't know I could pass it. And, I passed.
So what was your mom's name?
Marlene.
Marlene.
Yeah.
And she was married to Ralph.
Married to Ralph.
And Marlene, I assume, has since transitioned.
Yeah, she left us in 2017. Actually, this month, April 27th, 2017. It's funny. I woke up April 1st this year crying.
Really?
Still miss her. It's 7 years now.
Of course. Why wouldn't you?
And the mind's in the body, right? The body knows. I woke up and I was like, gosh, I'm sad today. And my wife, Caitlin, she goes, well, it's your mom died this month. Remember? You're probably remembering that at some level. So, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then what about Ralph? Ralph had you said a stroke?
Yeah, so he had a stroke. I mean, when
He
we
was
were
your business partner.
He was my
and your dad.
And my dad.
Stepdad, dad.
Yeah, and he took care of my mom. He did not want her to go to a care facility. So taking care of her played a part in taking him down. He already had his own health issues. But in fact, in 2017, before my mom passed, because I was divorced, I was living in their basement. And again, pity party, but I tried to, and my mantra today is enjoy the ride, and I crafted that during that time. I'd be downstairs in their basement working, and my office was below their bedroom. And I'd get up early. I was working with East Coast clients, so my first calls were always before 7, and I'd hear a ruckus going on. And I'd go upstairs, and my mom would be fighting with my dad because she didn't know who he was. And thank God she always remembered me. I'd walk up the stairs and say, hey, Mom, and she'd turn around and get a smile and be like, oh, who's this man in my room? And heartbreaking
No way.
situation. And I went to gratitude. I'm so happy that I'm divorced, I'm broke, and have to live in my mom's basement. So I'm here when she forgets who my dad is. But I took her to the hospital because she fell down, came back, and he had high blood pressure, some liver problems, and he ended up in the hospital. So I had both my parents in the hospital. And again, I'm a mess. I shouldn't be taking care of anybody right now. I should be probably in an asylum for a few years for my sanity. But yeah, that was definitely one of my most challenging times.
Holy cow. So when did Ralph pass?
So he
what was
2021.
And what
was
happened
4
to
years.
take him down?
He got put on dialysis, and the second my mom died, he died. He did not want to be here. I've never, but they were in their 60s. This is what's sad. Both their parents, my grandparents are all gone, but they all lived into their 80s. My mom left us at 63, and Ralph was 64, 65? And he never drank. He never smoked, took pretty good care of himself. And again, this is a whole other rabbit hole, but he was negative, and I think the negativity took him down from the inside out. But he ended up on dialysis, and he did it for a few months, but he didn't want to be here anymore. So he took himself off dialysis, and they said he'd be here for about a week after, and he was.
Sure enough. Wow.
He was, yeah.
Back to mindset, right?
Yeah.
Like what world are you creating?
And And it's interesting. I mean, I just the other night, I was going through some stuff, Brandon, and I found a letter I wrote him in 1998 when I was 25 years old, 2 pages long, and I was warning him. And this is intuitive. I'm not saying I was that smart, but I was warning him about the negativity. I was like, in the letter, I say, Dad, you have our family prepared. We have more than enough food storage. He had more than enough. He had a small militia and munitions and guns and ammunition. I mean, he was prepared. And I literally in that letter said, it's time to smell the roses in it. You've got a beautiful business, a beautiful family. You don't need to prepare for the end of the world. But he continued to prepare every year for the next 20 years, and it took him down.
Isn't that crazy? And it makes me think, look back like on today and all the fear that's produced by watching social media and all that. And you got to get this, you got to prepare, you got to whatever. Like, everyone's been preparing their whole lives, and it never comes to fruition.
Yeah.
Like, what are we preparing for?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, you got to be prepared for what? Like, you know.
Well, and again, my spiritual belief is if this physical world got that bad, take me home, God. I know we have a beautiful place waiting for us. In fact, you know, I grew up in the Mormon religion. I'm not a member anymore, but I remember as a young kid going to church and them saying, you know, if the veil was lifted, we would kill ourselves to get there. It's so beautiful. So when he was preparing for doomsday, he called me an ostrich. He's like, Shawn, you're an ostrich. You just want to put your head in the ground. And I said, well, if what you're talking about comes true, I'm definitely putting my head in the ground and just praying. I'm going to be like, get me out of here. I'm not going to fight some other country for my house. I'm not going to fight my own government. I'm just going to peacefully transition, however that's meant to be.
Yeah, you wonder where that conditioning came from. Like, if he learned that from his father or from his mother, maybe either one of those two.
I think it was a group of friends, because he had, and again, you know, we become what we think about, we become who we hang around. And he had a group of gun buddies. They'd go shooting, they'd talk doomsday, and, you know, the mind reacts to chemicals. And when you're thinking negative thoughts, you get a chemical rush from thinking of overcoming it. And he got addicted to the rush of negativity. He really did. Wow. And I mean, I'd go to breakfast every once in a while with his gun buddies, and I'm naturally optimistic, but I've worked really hard to be very, very positive. And again, opposites, you know, don't always attract. They sometimes push away from each other. When you're talking about the law of attraction and vibration, their negativity, I couldn't even eat a meal with them. I had to have to bail. I'd find a reason to pick up my phone and say, hey, I got to take off, because I couldn't listen to that negativity.
It's like oil and water.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about like when you went to your wife and, you know, your first wife, and said, hey, I've had enough. You know, you change, starting your own thing. You quit the family business.
Yeah.
How did she take all that? What's her name, by the way?
It's Heidi. Heidi. Yeah.
What's her last name?
Pilcher.
Can we talk about Heidi for a second?
Yeah. Yeah. She's the mother of my children. Yeah. And
awesome.
We definitely have our differences and still do, but I always try and speak highly of her. Yeah. I mean, she gave me 4 beautiful kids. We had a 20-year marriage that had so many good times in it. And again, I'll take accountability, right? I was a broken man. Yeah. And I don't blame her for maybe the way she reacted to some of the things, but she didn't like the idea of cutting back. She did not. Yeah. I'd created a really good lifestyle that we had both come accustomed to. And I used to say, you know, if I lost everything, me and my wife and my kids could live in a trailer and I'd be happy, because I'm about family. And I'm not saying she wasn't that way, but definitely we had a lot of disagreements. You know, I was trying to find my next. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I grew up in my family business. I had a business degree. I'm a good salesperson. But when you're 40 years old and you decide to start over, you're going to have to take some cutbacks, right? I mean, I had put my resume out to different industries. I looked at going to marketing. I actually flew to Chicago and spent 10 days at All-State University and was going to open an All-State branch here in Draper. And I went through the steps of that, and I got back, and I had an intuitive thought. And by this time, I was awake, right? I wasn't in my program thinking. And my intuition said, this is just like the siding business. It's a different product. It's a service. You're going to have employees. You're going to have some of the things you didn't like. Don't do it, Shawn. And I'll never forget, I came out of my office. I had a home office at the time, and walked in to tell her that. And what are you doing? You just got back. We don't have very much money. You just spent it on flights and training. You've already started this. You're not going to do that? I said, no, I'm not. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do something else. What? I don't know yet. I don't know yet. And that didn't put good things into our relationship, right? That was definitely a disagreement. She hadn't worked in a long time. And she started looking for some part-time jobs. And again, just not good, right? I'm not going to blame anybody. I'm just going to say this isn't a good situation. You got two people that have grown apart a little bit that are disagreeing. Now you've got huge financial pressure and you're trying to replace the income. And I mean, my business did well for a long time. And I did have savings account. It was all gone. I mean, trying to hang on to that house, I'll never forget. I started selling stuff and I never stopped. I mean, I had gold, I had silver. It was all gone. When I first got married in 95, my grandma was a Great Depression grandma, and she was a hairdresser, and she had freezer money. She'd always put a little cash in envelopes and hide it in her freezer. And at my wedding in 1995, she handed me an envelope, and she said, here's some freezer money. I want you to save it. I saved that from 1995 until 2014.
Really?
And I pulled it out and used it for Christmas for my kids.
Did you really?
The last year. And I pulled my kids because I wanted to teach my kids a lesson. I said, this is from my grandma, your great grandma, they didn't get to meet. My oldest met her when he was a toddler. And I was trying to impress a lesson. I don't know that it hit the way I wanted it to, because
that's all right.
Everybody was just like, Dad, go get a paycheck. Like, don't tell us we're using grandma's freezer money. Go get a job.
Yeah.
It was crazy. That was Christmas of 2013. January 1 of 2014. And again, Heidi didn't love this. I said, I'm taking a month off. What? I'm taking January of 2014 off. And the analogy I've used is I was like a guy out in the ocean flailing, and anything that was trying to come to save me, I was pushing it away. And I said, I have to just chill out for a month. I started working when I was 15 years old. I'd never taken more than a couple weeks off in my entire life. And yeah, I was in a financial mess, but I needed some space and time. And it's crazy how life works. It only took me a month. And I did. I binge watched Breaking Bad. Such a good series. I ate ice cream in bed. I literally vegged out.
You literally didn't do a whole lot.
No.
You just checked out and said, I'm just going
to
be with Shawn.
Yes. And it's funny. I coach my clients on this all the time. We spend most of our lives as human doings. We're human beings. And it will do you some good once in a while to just be who you are. And so I took that month. And I want to back up a little bit too. During this process, I wasn't feeling very good. And so I'd been going to the doctor, and I'm not a huge fan of medicine or doctors. Part of my mom's Alzheimer came from lifelong medication and antidepressant medication. And so I was very against medication. For me, I know people use medication and it has its purpose, but for me, I was very against it. I'd been to doctors. I was on 2 prescriptions for indigestion. They wanted me on an antidepressant. They tested my hormones and told me they were off. And it was part of my It's Time Waking. I was like, no, I'm not going to treat these symptoms from stress. I'm going to eliminate the stress and get myself naturally healthy. I just rabbit holed there. Why was I talking about that?
It's about your experience.
Yeah.
Why you went to medicate. They're trying to push meds on you. You weren't a fan of the meds.
Yeah.
So.
I guess that was part of my month off. I was like, I'm just going to hit a physical reset and let my body rest for a month and try and get rid of the anxiety, because it was crippling me. I couldn't even make any clear decisions. And I'm like, I need to breathe,
right,
to be. And at the end of January, I got a call from a friend, and he said, hey, Scott Siegel, the owner of Certified Contractors Network, which is a contractor training organization that I'd been a member of with my business for 10 years. He heard you're doing nothing. You've had a successful business. You've been a client of his for 10 years. He might have a job for you teaching his material. I love the idea. Wow. I love the idea. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Remote job. And again, I'd been in my mind thinking, what do I want to do differently? I don't want to have to go to an office every day. I want to create some time freedom. I want to be able to make some commission or have a business that I can earn. And so I reached out to Scott, and he offered me the job. The problem was it was a very low base compared to and this also didn't go over very well at home. I was literally not even going to make enough to make our old house payment before we short sold it. So I took it. I took the job. It had a commission, and I did, over the next few years, max out that commission and did very well, but I didn't know, and none of us knew. So we, moved out of the big house, rented an affordable house here in Draper, and I'm thinking I'm going to be an employee. I'd been self-employed for most of my career. I'm like, I'm going to be a remote employee. I'm going to coach businesses on process, and I'm going to live a great life. And this is my reset. This is my new.
That was in 2014 to 2016?
Yeah.
17?
Yeah. I worked for that company from 2014 until September of 2018. So almost 5 years there.
When did you get divorced? What year?
2016.
2016.
Yeah. So we made it a couple years with this new lower income, rent in the house. And again, I'm not faulting Heidi for this, but as a man, short selling your home and having to move your family out of a nice neighborhood to a rental property is pretty tough on your ego, right? She cried at the closing. I remember sitting across as we're signing the documents to short sell, and she's crying. And this is not about her, this is about me, but I have never felt like a bigger failure in my life. Like, I already was feeling bad enough for me, but to see that the person I loved and cared about the most of the time was that upset, that hurt, and I don't know if our relationship ever recovered from some of the damage of the financial stuff.
Really?
There was no other issues in our marriage per se. There was no infidelity, we always got along pretty good, but I do feel like as part of my awakening and me reevaluating on myself, I shifted a lot, and I'm sure that was uncomfortable for her to see me shift and to see me want to take a job making less money than I ever had and be happy with it. It's like, who's this guy? This isn't the guy I married who was 20 years old and going to take over the world.
You disrupted her life.
Yeah.
And all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine sitting there in closing and having my wife crying her eyes out.
Yeah.
It was a movie.
It was humiliating too. I mean, we were at a closing with an attorney with the real estate agent I'd worked with who was a friend of mine. And I just sat there in front of them. No one was judging me, but the ego says I was being judged, right?
Of course.
You're not a man. You're not a good provider. You're not a good husband. You're probably not even a good dad. And
you failed.
Yeah. Yeah. I failed.
Damn.
And when we started fighting and moving towards the divorce, I was told that a lot, right? That I was a shitty provider. I was a shitty dad. I was a shitty this. I was a shitty that. And when you met me, I believed that, man. When I was living in Chris Roth's basement, I believed I was a piece of shit.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
The outside world can be very convincing. And, we get programmed from birth from the outside world. And when the outside world shifts and starts telling you a bunch of stories and you've got some results that actually are in alignment with that. My kids didn't really like me at the time. I wasn't making the money I had. I was like, yep, apparently everybody's right. I've kind of messed this thing we called life up.
Isn't it crazy how we believe others thinking more than we believe ourselves?
Yeah.
Like we believe the stories. We believe the noise and the words.
And they're all stories.
It's just noise.
Yeah, they're just
and
words.
They're all stories.
Yes.
And they're all words.
Yeah.
And the ego just attaches to that and just eats it.
And then it takes that story into everything you do. Your health and wellness, your business, your personal life. That story is now your new story. And in my work, I learned this from Bob Proctor. Our minds get programmed from spaced repetition of thought or emotional events.
Yeah.
That's it. I had emotional events with my father. Losing this house and as much emotion was put into it, created a new program inside of me, a new paradigm. Yeah. And it was not a good one. It was not a good one for me or anybody around me.
Yeah. Yeah, those emotions and traumatic events, it's just like the brain, man, it holds on to that stuff.
It does.
It Velcros to that stuff, and trying to relearn or unlearn that story is like pulling teeth.
Well, and I learned this from Bob Proctor too. I'm so grateful. He passed away a few years ago, but I made it to his top ranks as a consultant and spent time with him. But he taught me this about the mind, which I've never really heard the way he would say it, but your mind has two jobs. God gave our mind two jobs: keep you efficient and keep you safe. And when you have these stories going around, even if they're not true and they're not yours, it's going to keep you safe from those stories. So I had these stories about scarcity, about me not being enough, and my subconscious mind was trying to keep me safe. It didn't want me to reach out and do anything scary or do anything new. It wanted me to try to find comfort. But the problem was the comfort I had was all gone. The business was not doing it. The house was gone. So I had to get uncomfortable, and I had to go against myself and say, hey, thanks for the warning. I hear you, but none of this stuff is true for me and none of it's mine. So I'm going to make my own story.
Wow.
And I did. I did.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Way cool. Yeah, Bob Proctor, he's got some incredible videos on YouTube.
I always say I love young Bob. There's some videos of him when he was younger. I mean, I loved old Bob too. That's who I knew, but I love watching the ones when he was young, and you can see he's like skilling his craft and learning the way he's going to teach this material. And he taught me so many things.
Yeah, neat guy.
Yeah.
What's that little book that he packed around with him that he never left? And
Think and Grow Rich.
Was it Think and Grow Rich?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He studied that book for 50 years, and the program I trained under him in is on that book. And my program, Inner Blueprint, is based on the same principles. He also really liked the green book. He called it The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. That's a good one too.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a neat guy. So, wife left in 2016. What did the divorce look like? Was it nasty?
It was nasty.
Leave as friends? Did you want to murder each other?
No, she wanted to murder me.
It wasn't good.
It was not good.
And did you get the kids part-time? She took them and just said, "I'm out of here." You're a terrible spouse and father.
Yeah,
What does that look like? Just a 2-minute synopsis.
And this does feel a little vulnerable because I got accused of a lot of things. So I went to a contractor retreat in January of 2016, and she didn't come with me. And her story is I told her not to come. My story is I asked her to come and she didn't want to come. So again, but at this retreat, I made the decision I was done. It was they put me on a stage, and it was the first time I'd put on a stage, and I really wanted to be on the stage teaching and speaking. It was one of my aspirations, and her not being there to support me in my first speech, I just was in my head about it. And then I was there with a lot of my contractors who were there with their wives, and I was listening to them talk, and I just felt like there was something different in these relationships than I had in mine. And I had a few mentors there. I mean, I got blessings from friends there, and I had a contractor who I was working with, a female contractor, who I did spend quite a bit of time with there. We talked a lot. She was going through a divorce. I'd been working with her and her husband for a while. Well, when I got back and said I wanted to leave, she couldn't handle that I just wanted to leave, and she thought there had to be a reason. And so the witch hunt began. They started going through my cell phone records, which I had nothing to hide, so I let them. And they figured out I'd been texting that girl while I was there. And so I got accused of cheating on my wife. My kids were told I cheated on her, and everybody on her side of the family was told, and I did not cheat on my wife. I would never do that. I did not do that. But the story that was told and the ripple effect that created, we don't talk today. I'll just tell you that. No, we parallel parented until my youngest was out of the house, and I haven't spoken or communicated with her in 2 years. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And as a mindset guy, I'd like to say, shame on you, Shawn. You should be able to make it better. And I feel like, and again, this is just my story. There's two sides to every story. The truth is always in the middle. Yep. I feel like I did everything I could to try and make things better, to try and make things right. I understand it's hard to say somebody left you because they left you, and it feels better to have a reason. And I do feel like the reason felt better, so that's the story that got told a lot, but it did a lot of damage to my kiddos. I'm still working on my relationship with them to this day. I really am.
Really?
Yeah, they dealt with a lot of trauma because of both of us. Sure. And they're amazing kids, but I want a better relationship with them. I mean, if I'm vulnerable on this, every day I pray for a better relationship with my kids, my adult children. I have 2 bonus daughters now that see me through their mother's eyes, and I can do no wrong. Yeah. That's a good feeling, but
they're sitting in a different seat at the movie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm a different person. I mean,
for sure.
If we go back, I mean, an important part of the story, Brandon, is in 2014, 2 years before I got divorced, a counselor had told me to get out of the house. I was working remotely, and we had a huge house. It's the house we short sold. I rented an office over off Pioneer Street, just a room, kind of like we're recording the podcast in. And I'd go there every day to do my work. And I'd been listening to, I don't know if you've ever listened to Esther Hicks.
Of course.
I listened to a ton of Esther Hicks in 2014. And she talked about this idea of a life script. And so I sat in that office, and I have videos, man. You wouldn't recognize the dude. I teary-eyed, swollen face. I look like crap. I typed out a 2-page letter, and I described my life how I wanted. I said, this is my mind. It's crystal clear. I'm able to make decisions. I couldn't make any decisions then. I talked about my health. I told you I was on all these prescriptions for indigestion. I wrote about my perfect body, my perfect health. I actually wrote about my perfect relationship. 2 years from my divorce, and I still have the letter. I can read it to you sometime, and you'll
should have brought your letter.
I actually had it in my hand. I should have brought it.
Seriously should have brought it.
Yeah. In there, and I was the way Esther described it is go specific where you can, go general where you can't. So in this relationship, I didn't want to create divorce. I didn't want to force myself into a marriage that wasn't going to serve me. So I was very careful. I said, thank you for the beautiful relationships in my life. Thank you for all the love and support. And I wrote it open to, I don't know what this is, but this is what I want. I then talked about my work, and it's crazy. I described the work I do today in this letter, and I didn't even know about mindset work. I didn't even know about. And then you flip it over, and I talk about the homes, the cars, the lifestyle. I actually threw in a little paragraph about the University of Utah winning a national championship. That's the only part of the letter that still hasn't come true. And at the end, I give gratitude. Thank you for the struggle. Thank you, thank you. Brandon, that letter today is true.
Wow.
Everything in it is true. My mind is clear. I turned 50. I'm prescription free. I'm hormone free. I just married Caitlin, who we met 4 years ago, and it's the easiest relationship I've ever had. And I got 2 beautiful, amazing bonus daughters out of the deal. And we got married on December 31st last year. We had 90 people there. 60 of them were clients that are my buddies, my friends. Yeah. Like, I've created everything that's in that letter is in the physical. And that's where I'd heard it my whole life, but we create our own reality. And the most important thing about creating your own reality is, like we talked about, and you're huge on this, it's self-care and self-love. When I finally took care of me, my business could grow. When I finally took care of me, my health could improve. When I finally took care of me, all my relationships could get better. So yeah.
That's huge.
And we talked about stories, right? I wrote my own story, and then I held it in my mind, and I affirmed around it, and I reprogrammed my mind around my new story, and now I get to live my new story. It's really fun. As part of my program, I have people do this, and I just got challenged by some clients. They're like, Shawn, you're reading a 10-year-old letter that's already true. When are you going to do a new one? So I just wrote
a new one,
my 60-year-old letter. Present tense, already happened. And it's crazy. Some of the things we put in there have already come true in the first few weeks of this year. It's
really,
yeah.
It's fascinating. When I started this podcast back up, I interviewed my little brother and talked about dreams. Mm-hmm. And it's dreaming. You got to dream. All you did is sit down, write down your dream on a piece of paper. And if you write it down, stick to it, be diligent, dreams come true.
Because dreams come from your higher self.
You can write anything you want.
Yes, if you can. I don't know. Have you ever read or studied Neville Goddard at all?
Heard the name.
Okay.
He's not the dream.
He's the imagination, but dreams are your I just want to tie this into the story because, and again, I don't want to get religious, but in a spiritual sense, I believe that God used his imagination to create this world. And Neville Goddard, in his books and in his lectures he used to give, he would say imagination is your connection to creation. And if you can imagine it, if your mind can create it here, your body can create it here. Like, it doesn't come into your dreams, it doesn't come into your imagination if it's not possible for you. And the problem is we have these dreams, and then our stories tell us it's not possible, and we listen to the story. Yeah, all my work with myself is just believe in the dream. Just believe. The dream happened because, and again, I feel like I was inspired the letter I wrote. I don't know if I could have rewritten that or done it any differently. It came from God through me.
You were a vessel.
Yes, I was.
We don't think our own thoughts anyways.
No.
Thoughts come in. We think we're in charge of our thoughts and we create them, but they're really just coming in all the time. And then you decide
what to do with it.
What to do with the thoughts. Yeah. Where do thoughts come from?
Right.
I'll ask you a question. Where do thoughts come from?
The ethers. Thoughts are things. They're, when I think something, it goes out there and somebody else receives part of it and somebody else receives part of it. It's energy. It's vibration. It's always moving. Bob used to say energy cannot be created or destroyed, right?
Right.
A thought, when you have it, there are no original thoughts, like what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we grab a bunch of thoughts, make them part of our story, and then we regurgitate those thoughts for 40 years. Yep. When I had my awakening, I opened up my mind to new thoughts. And that's an important part of the process that's where meditation comes in. Quieting the mind to create space for a new thought.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
You're on it. Byron Katie, which is my favorite human being on the world, her inspiration, like, she thinks everything's imagination. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even you and I sitting here looking at each other today, we're imagining what we see. And we're imagining what we hear and what we share.
Yeah. And if I sat where you're sitting and you sat where, we'd see something different.
Yeah, I'd see a different movie.
Yes, because we have different filters.
Different filters, different upbringing, the way we were socialized, the way we were trained.
I need to give you some like gratitude, because the work you did at that meeting I went to in 2016 when I was living in the basement, I just remember start asking yourself, Shawn, is this true? Is it absolutely true? And as I was crafting my new story, I use those words all the time, man. Like your impact, and I know you do this for impact because you care about people, but all this winning that I'm now doing, you can definitely give yourself some props, because those two questions that she taught you and her work, and I've never taken a deep dive, but I use her work in my work with those questions. When I'm having people come up with the stories that are holding them back, I tell them to say, is that true?
True.
How does it go? Is it absolutely?
Yeah. Well, is it true? And then the second question is it, can you absolutely know that's true? And when you drop the absolutely in there, the mind shifts.
Yeah.
Because the mind can't really grab absolute.
There is no absolute to the
wants
mind.
to,
Yeah.
And it thinks it can hold on to it. But
yeah,
how she come up with the language and those worksheets and actually processing one of those, it's fascinating. Yeah, you wonder. I mention her on almost every podcast. I sit with people and counsel and let them share their minds with me on a weekly basis. But you wonder what connects, and if the work you're doing, is it actually beneficial, or people hearing your, hearing you speak and share what you think is beneficial for the planet. And I mean, I scream it at the top of my lungs. People come to me and like, hey, what do you want to do? I was like, well, here's a piece of paper, fill it out, and we'll talk about it. No, I just want to talk about this. Talking doesn't get you to where you need to be. You actually got to do the work, have somebody hold you accountable, and then that's the awakening for the ego mind to go, oh, wait a second here, this guy's onto me.
Well, and just the fact, and I love, you're a pen and paper guy like me, right? And Bob Proctor used to say, get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper. It looks, I mean, if you think about this, and I use this practically, so many people love to-do lists, right?
Yep.
Why do you like a to-do list? Because when it's in your mind, it feels like 100 things. When you write on a piece of paper, it's 7. And for me, it's the same thing in processing your thoughts. If I journal about it, if I write it down, something that seemed like a mountain, when I get it on paper, sometimes I laugh at myself. Like, why were you worried about that? Like, now that you have it down, you've done 10 times harder work than this. This is like 3 steps to getting this done, and then you're on to the next thing. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of power in pen to paper.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Byron Katie says that all the time. And I love that she says, when you take it out of your mind, you have a thought, like I'm anxious or I'm worried or this human being, was dishonest and so lied to me. You take it out of your mind and you put it on paper, and she says it makes it stable.
Oh.
So in your head, nothing's stable.
No, it's a loop.
It's a loop. You got stories. You got the
monkey mind, I call it. It just goes
the
crazy.
Hamster wheel is going a million miles an hour. And when you take that thought out of your mind, write it down, it makes it stable, so the brain, the mind, you as a human being can focus on the thought.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just dancing around up there, and you can't make sense of it. And you can try to, as we do. We try to justify and understand and try to get like, hey, I get what's going on here. But man, when you put it on paper,
that's what it is. It's right there.
Shifts.
No, I agree.
So Bob and Katie were on the same page.
Same page. Well, that's one thing too, like we say, that we're all connected energetically, and information. I'm a big fan of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich from the 30s. It's in so much personal development. And whether you're talking Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, Brian Tracy, the names that they have all used his work and made it their own. You know what I mean? And Byron Katie, Bob, it's all goes back. And to me, it goes back to truth.
Sure.
Truth is truth. And whether you listen to Esther Hicks or, and there's some people that they're like, she's crazy. She says she's, channeling spirits. It's like, well, when I listen to what she says, it hits me like truth. And I trust my, inner voice that says, Shawn, that's some good information. I don't care where it comes from. Yeah. You know what I mean? If it's good, if it's truth, it's truth.
It resonates.
Yeah.
Yeah. If she's channeling people or not, it's all about the information and what she's bringing in.
Yeah.
And if we don't think our thoughts anyways, where's her thoughts coming from?
Right.
She is being channeled. So are you right now.
We all are
so
channeled.
Am I,
yes.
And I'm talking to you right
That's
now.
true.
I don't know where my words are coming from.
They just come, right?
They just show up and I spit them out. And
Have you ever had this happen where you're working with somebody doing some of your consulting work and they want you to repeat something and you can't?
all the time.
It's because we channel it.
Yeah.
You know, I can't tell you. And now a lot of my clients say, can I record this? Because they know if they ask me to repeat something, I'm like, I don't even know what I said. Yeah. Like, I read your energy. I feel what you're saying. I'm more of a feeler in the energy world than a listener. I feel words. I feel energy. And then words come back out of me, but I can't recreate them, right? I can't.
For sure.
I don't know what I just said. It felt really good. And I can tell by your smile, you liked it, but I don't know what it was.
Yeah, it happens often because like, can you repeat that? I want to write it down. I'm like,
you should have listened closer the first time.
I don't even know what I just said.
It's a one and done. It's a one and done. Yeah, no, that's interesting though, Brandon. You're making me think even more about the fact that, because I know, because I can't repeat it, that it comes from somewhere else, but just that thought difference, the way you said that has hit me. And that's what I love about this work. Yeah. Somebody can say one thing different than you're used to hearing it, and it shifts your whole perspective and reality on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Where do thoughts come from?
Yeah.
Like, no one's ever answered that question.
No.
People for millenniums have been trying to figure that out, and you can Google it, but like, literally, where does a thought come from? And if you don't think about it, you just think we create our own thoughts. But like, when you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes. Are you thinking? Or do you just wake up and say, I'm going to think now? Or are you thinking the second you open your eyes?
Yeah.
And are you thinking while you're sleeping and dreaming? So if you're laying there asleep, you're basically unconscious. You're sound asleep and you're having a dream. Well, who's creating that dream?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. And we've never really talked about this, but like one of the most impactful things that Bob taught me, and we always say between your ears, the 6 inches, but that's the brain. And the brain is the processor of information from the mind. Where does the mind reside? What does the mind look like? And I do this when I'm bringing on clients. Close your eyes, Brandon, and describe your mind. And most people will describe their brain, or I've heard 1,000 angry minions, or I've heard a library filing cabinet. Nobody can tell you what the mind looks like because we don't know what it looks like. It's never. And Bob, and I do in my work, he gives us a little, it's called the stick figure. And it's a flow chart and a stick figure of how the mind works and how the subconscious is the filter that really creates your reality. And it's programmed with stories. And so I don't know where the thoughts come from, but I now know what my subconscious does with those thoughts and how programmed it was. And then I've reprogrammed it myself with what I want it to do. So when thoughts come to me, like I'm huge on gratitude. I tried to be grateful for most of my life. I practice gratitude. I've done enough affirmation work and reprogramming that I can truly say I'm just a grateful person. I mean, if I miss a flight, I'm thankful that I avoided whatever was on the other side that I wasn't supposed to. You know what I mean? You can literally find gratitude in every moment if you program it into your story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trusting reality.
Yeah.
The problem is the ego mind wants to argue with reality.
Yeah.
24/7.
And that creates resistance, and resistance is a negative vibration, which then attracts negative results, right?
Pain and suffering.
Yeah. I'm all about, and I've been accused of being painfully positive and spiritually bypassing negative emotions. No, I feel the negative emotion, but as fast as I can, I know how important my energy is. I transmute it into a positive. And the biggest tool for that is gratitude. You know, when my mom was dying, I was grateful I was there. I was grateful that she recognized me. I was grateful that I got to spend time with her. You know, when Ralph passed, you know, me and him had a little bit of a falling out after his strokes where he was just very belligerent and very argumentative. And so I didn't see him. I reconnected a month before he passed away, and my hand was on his chest when he left this planet. And yes, that's sad. Yes, he left too early. I don't focus on that. I focus on the dad that saved my life and gave me, I'm going to get emotional, most of the good business sense, the integrity that I have. I got to watch him transition with my hand on his chest as he left this planet. And I'm grateful for that, right?
Yeah.
Forget all the stories and there's lots of things to pull out of that suck, that are negative. You know, my mom, she was 63. She should have been with us another 20 years. I'm grateful I was there. I'm grateful for the time I did have. I mean, anytime I go negative, I can always pull it back to a better feeling. And again, like you said, we don't control anything. We control how we feel. And how we feel is how we respond to the thoughts that we've just agreed we don't know where the hell they come from.
Sure. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a gift that you were able to sit with them when they were
Yeah.
transitioning to the other side.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So great. I actually had the blessing. I was with I have 6 grandparents because I have two fathers. I've watched all 6 of my grandparents transition, and I've been there, and
Wow.
I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person, and I have felt, I had my grandpa Shields, my mom's dad, my uncle and Ralph were in the room giving me a priesthood blessing, and I don't hold the priesthood, and my mom said, "Get in there," and my uncle Daryl was given it, and I know it's against the rules, but he let me stand with them, and as he was given the blessing, he stopped, and he started mumbling. And I opened my eyes and I looked at my dad and he looked at me and I'm like, who's he talking to? Get done, give the blessing. My grandpa passed within a couple hours. And after I asked my Uncle Daryl, I said, what? Who are you talking to? He goes, did you hear that? And I said, yeah, we heard you. He goes, it was Vaughn's brothers. They were coming to get him.
Really?
Yeah. It's pretty vulnerable to share, but that was like the coolest spiritual experience I've ever had. And we felt it, we felt it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder what goes on, don't we?
Yeah.
On the other side?
Yeah.
Wonder what goes on this side.
Yeah.
When you're in your crazy mind.
Yeah. We think we know what's going on, but like you said, we're all in our imagination.
We're all imagining and perceiving.
This is totally random, but I feel like it's somewhat. Did you ever see? And I don't like watching a lot of TV. I think it's wasteful. But there's a series a few years ago that Caitlin, my wife, hadn't seen, so I told her, I'm like, you would dig this. It's called True Detective with Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey.
No.
It's this twisted serial murder, and these are 2 detectives. But the craziest, and Matthew McConaughey, he's such a good actor, and he's crazy in this one, but he's talking about the faces of these abused women that they're finding their dead bodies everywhere. But he's describing that they're fighting and resisting being murdered. And again, this is horrible, but he says, and he's looking at the pictures of their faces, and he said, right before they leave, they stop fighting it, and you see relief on their face. And again, what's true and what's not true, but you think about it, that goes back to the thing that we're in this struggle, and we're going to paradise. We're going to a beautiful place, and heaven on earth let's find that beautiful place now. Let's take the stress and worry off our face now and just release and say, you know what, life is.
Sure.
And I'm going to enjoy the ride.
Here's a question for you while you're on that point.
Yeah.
Isn't heaven what we're experiencing now?
I believe so.
So is there somewhere else to go?
I believe there's different dimensions, yes. Oh. Yeah. Like you said, though, because we're in one reality now.
Sure.
There could be another reality going on right in front of us right now that we can't see because of vibration and frequency differences.
Yeah, right next door.
Yeah.
I'm just a big fan of now. All that exists is now, and you got to live your life to be in heaven now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know.
Well, it's, when I first started doing my mindset work, I've worked with a lot of different religious backgrounds. I've got Jewish clients. I've got born-again Christian. I've worked with an Amish gentleman. They were all worried, are you going to take my religious beliefs? And religious beliefs are programmed into you, right? Sure. And I've said no, but the interesting thing is every single religion I've ever worked with says the mindset work that you do, understanding the mind and the way the physical laws work, is in alignment. And if you go to the Bible, ask and you shall receive, right? But there is a lot of verbiage that heaven is on earth that supports what you're saying, right? Yeah. And what does transition look like? Maybe it's where we are right now, and it looks different when we get there, right?
I don't know. It's crazy, though.
Yeah.
I talked about this in a podcast recently, but past future doesn't even exist, never does, never will.
No, time is all at once.
We're trained through religion to live this particular life so that when you die, you go to heaven. But you're working towards a future that doesn't exist because all there is now.
Yes. Yes.
So what are we being tricked is my question. Well, because I want to work to be in heaven now because that's all that exists is now and now and now and now. But religions are set up for a future promise.
Yes.
That I can't wrap my mind around being that far into the future to go, oh, okay, I live my life this particular way now so that when I die, I get to XYZ.
Yeah.
Why not just live heaven now? And then when you died, maybe it continues. Maybe if you don't live heaven, I don't know. I mean, it's just
funny.
a thought.
That's a really deep way of explaining. My enjoy the ride mantra is heaven now. It really is. It's life is going to happen. You have negative emotion. You have positive emotion. Negative emotion, this is from Esther Hicks, anger, jealousy, depression, those all feel the same in our vibration, in our human body. Different levels. When I'm angry, it's a little bit higher, but it feels like crap, right? Joy, love, gratitude, happiness. So to me, heaven on earth, for me, heaven is now, and it's staying on the positive side of emotion. And if I stay there, you know, Esther Hicks used to say a happy life is just a string of happy moments, and I can choose happy in any moment. And I would say I can choose heaven in any moment. Like, you know, when I wake up, and I actually, this is something to share with listeners. I listened to A Grateful Day by Brother David. It's a 5-minute YouTube video. He's an Austrian monk. It's a beautiful video. I don't watch the video. I listen to it. I usually, when I'm taking my bonus daughters to school in the morning, we listen to it. But this is the premise of A Grateful Day. Today is your first day. And for me, I go to, yesterday was 2014. I'm sick, broken, all alone. And I wake up today in this life. I couldn't have a bad day. There's not one thing that could happen. Or I say, what if you were homeless yesterday? You know, if you're feeling like you're being picked on right now and life is rough, pretend you were homeless yesterday, or pretend you're homeless today and you're fighting for food, you're begging, and you wake up in your current existence. You'll just be happy for the roof, in the winter for the heat, even if it's not the best food, for the top ramen, right? That creates presence by saying, today's my first day. And here's where Brother David really puts the pressure on you. It's also your last. First day and only day. And I've listened to that. And I told you I've created gratitude as part of my being. I've listened to him in those 5 minutes every day for 5 years. And so every day I wake up and I pretend, and Caitlin laughs at me. Sometimes I'll wake up and jump out of bed. Where did you come from? Holy cow, you're beautiful. Where did you come from, babe? And then I'll run downstairs. I'll come up. Have you seen the wood floors in our kitchen? Those things are amazing. And then I'll come up and say, my car starts with a push button. I mean, I literally take it to the ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous.
That makes her feel good, right? It makes me feel good. And now we're starting the day in gratitude. How are you going to have a bad day when your husband jumped up, like, surprised that you were in bed with him and like, where did you come from? Yeah. I'll kick the coverage here, babe. Like, are you sure you're supposed to be here? I don't know if you're supposed to be here. I remember 2014, Shawn, and she's joked. I've showed her the video. She's like, I wouldn't have dated you, but babe, I wouldn't have hung out with you back then. I'm like, I know. I didn't like myself. I wouldn't expect anybody else to like me. But anyway, going back, a grateful day. Today's my first day. And it's so funny because I play with this with my clients and they're like, well, I definitely wouldn't go to work today. No, today's your only day, but you have to do your day. So make it your best. I work with home improvement contractors. Every home you go into, bring good energy into their house. You're protecting their number one investment, their home. Don't pretend that it's a misery that you're having to go sell and make money. Pretend it's your only day. Yesterday you were homeless. Today you have this job that pays well. And just for me, the pillars of first day, last day, creates heaven. I'm just talking to your point. Like, I do feel like I'm living in heaven every day right now, man.
That's beautiful and well put.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I think there's another YouTube video, and I don't know who or what it is that I listen to every once in a while, but it just says, you know, you wake up, you know, you turn on the water, like just the turn of a hand, and you have hot water. Okay?
Yes.
You say, you push the button and your car starts.
A Keurig machine, coffee.
Yeah,
and
you got coffee. You go to your kitchen and you can turn on your spout and water comes out.
DoorDash, you got Krispy Kreme and pizza and stuff from 7-Eleven delivered to your door.
Instant.
Yeah, we're spoiled.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
A computer that we hold in our hand that we can watch movies and download. I mean, we live in an amazing time, and yet we complain about it every day. And I won't complain anymore because I'm such a believer in energy and the laws. Like, everybody believes in gravity. I'm in the construction, and we tie off on roofs for a reason, because if you fall off the edge, you know, if you actually understand how the law of attraction, the law of vibration, the law of polarity, opposites, there's no love without hate, there is no heaven without hell, there's no scarcity without abundance, and the opposite is always available. You just have to choose it. You just have to use the law of assumption and assume it now. I am happy. I am abundant. I am the Universal Mindset Disruptor. I had to affirm that title. There's a funny story behind that.
Share it with us.
So it's been about 3 years ago. I was working with a marketing expert, and he said, you need an expert title. And it's kind of true. What's a mindset coach? What do you do, Shawn? And I used to call myself a reformed business coach turned mindset mentor because I found business process, although important, only works to the level of the belief of the individual I plug into it. So he had this whole process. We wrote down a bunch of words. What do you do with clients? What are the results? And he came up with, you're a mindset disruptor. You help people think better thoughts to get better results. He said, you want to work in the U.S.? I said, I want to be worldwide. He's like, worldwide? What do you want to be, the universal? And we both said, yeah. So we wrote it down, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. Sounds good. So I get home. It feels weird to say it, right? It's a little weird. So I start affirming that I am the Universal Mindset Disruptor. I say it every day with my I am enough, I am love, I am the Universal Mindset Disruptor. I'm doing an industry event that I'm speaking at. They ask for a bio. We add the title. We send it out. Well, the owner of this event knows 2014 Shawn. Okay, he's seen me up and down. And I run into this from time to time where people try to put you in a box. He called me up. Hey, I got your new bio. What the hell is this title? The Universal Mindset Disruptor? And he's laughing at me, man. And I sat there and I said, you know what? I said, I just had an idea. He goes, what? He goes, I can't read this from the stage without laughing. And I said, good. I said, you get up there, you introduce me, you read the title, and then you start laughing. He goes, what? I said, let me take it from there.
Oh, it's perfect.
I get up on stage. I say, hello, everybody. I said, I'm Shawn Feurer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. Do you want to know why he's laughing about that title and I'm not? Because he doesn't believe it and I do. And today we're going to talk about what you believe and how shifting what you believe can create better results in your life. So I have fun with it. Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Love it. How did you go about, so for those that are listening out there, and I'm curious too, because I'd like to be more out in the universe, let's say.
Yeah.
Like I've always wanted to speak on stage.
Yeah.
Right? We have a little group we run and blah, blah, blah. But how did you get to the point where you're really out mentoring people? You got a nice book of clients. Like just in a couple minutes, tell us what was your strategy.
Yeah. So, and I'll give you a little bit of a long-winded answer. When I first shifted from being a contractor business coach to a mindset coach, I was like, everybody needs mindset work. And so my initial thought was, I'll just help everybody. Now, that's not a very good business model, but I was just excited to kind of get away from the industry that I'd spent my entire, career at. So I started working with real estate agents. I worked with a medical device company for a little while. And I had somebody tell me, and it's kind of a cheesy saying, but they said, Shawn, don't forget who took you to the dance. There's an old saying, like, don't forget the girl that took you to the dance. And I'm like, home improvement industry has been good to me. So for me, the first thing is figure out who your audience is. Like based on your past life experiences, everything you've done, who does your message resonate? And with me, most contractors have a story. They don't come from Harvard. They don't come from MBA schools. They come from the school of hard knocks. And so they've got a lot of stories about scarcity, about self-worth. And my story really resonates because I spent so much time in the construction industry. So I picked the industry. I said, I'm gonna speak to contractors. And then I just started offering myself to events. And I get paid to speak today, but at first I'd talk to anybody. If my client base was in the room, I'm not going to charge you. I'll just come add value and hope to get some clients. I also sponsored some events, so I'd get a booth at an event, and they'd usually give you some speaking time with it. So that's kind of how I got myself out there, was just figuring out. I talk to home improvement contractors. Where do home improvement contractors go? And try and network and connect with the owners of those events. And now, and I don't know about you, but social media, I hate it. I really do. Talk about imagination. I don't even know if that crap is real. And I put good content out there, and I feel like it doesn't get the traction it deserves. I've literally had hundreds, if not thousands of people say, Shawn, I watch your stuff, but you don't get that many views. Like, what's going on? And I jokingly say, my message is too positive, and the powers that be, they only want negativity, so they push my stuff down. But yeah, it's picking your audience, your demographic, and then just finding the places they're going to be. And at first, offering your services for free as far as speaking goes, especially if you have a product to sell that goes along with what you're speaking about, it's a good way to get yourself out there. The other thing, too, is I give you thanks for helping me. And you said, we do this work. For me, I share myself vulnerably all over social media. And I used to have some expectation or hope that I would have bigger impact. But Bob Proctor taught me this too. He said, when you get in a room, one person is all it takes. One person hearing your message and making a difference for them. So anytime I do a Facebook Live or an Instagram Reel, my mentality is, and even doing this podcast with you, if there's one person that hears you and I talking about this, and I'm really excited to have you on my Inner Blueprint podcast and share your powerful story. But if one person takes it, it was worth me talking. That's all it takes. There's one person. And, you know, with that attitude, it's got me on more stages. It's got me, you know, helping more people. And it's got me not attached to the outcome. I can't control, just like I don't control anything around me. I only control me. When I reframe it for me, hey, I'm coming here. I'm going to talk to 100 people today. If one of them hears me, it was worth my time.
Yeah. How busy are you today? I noticed we went to lunch the other day and you had to run right out of there, and you told me when you got here today you had 7 calls or on the phone 7 hours yesterday. Like how's your, let's say, how busy are you? And then number 2, are you balanced?
Okay. I'm about as busy as I can be right now. I ran a construction company with 60 employees, lots of headaches. I didn't want to do that again when I created my mindset business. So right now I've got me, my wife, Caitlin, and then we've got an operations. Right now, I'm pretty much as busy as I can be. I do group coaching, so I a lot of times coach 30 people at a time in a group setting, which I had a story against that when I started, and Bob Proctor helped me get over that. I actually get more value with 30 people than one person.
So what was the story?
That I was more effective one-on-one.
Oh.
That I couldn't dive deep enough with a group of 30, but when you create a safe enough space, 30 people, 5 of them sharing vulnerably, 30 people just gained from those 5 people.
For sure.
And like me and you having a good conversation, and we drop a bomb and you say repeat it. I can't repeat it. You had to experience it. I now create windows where 30 gentlemen at a time or 30 women at a time get to have the experience. And so, but yeah, I'm pretty much, and I used to try to create balance. I now call it harmony because it's really hard. And the visual I use, and I feel like this is an intuitive thought for me, I call it the trifecta. I work on 3 areas. Finance is the top of the triangle. Health and wellness is one base, and self-love is the other base. Most business owners spend all their time on the top financial, and they end up with this tall, skinny triangle, and they tip over, and they get sick or they get divorced, right? It's trying to create harmony in this triangle. And so for me, yes, I'm busy with calls. I was on Zooms for 7 hours straight yesterday. My last call, I was driving to hot yoga at Core Power. And this is from my previous life. I used to work, go home and take care of everybody else and not create enough time. My health and wellness is my number one. If I go down, my business goes down. So I spend, every morning I wake up at 6. At 6:15, I'm in my hot sauna. At 6:30, I'm in my cold plunge. I get up, do some stretching. I take my bonus daughters to school every day. I make their mom sleep in. She does not like this. She was married for a long time, but she did everything. She had 3 jobs. She takes the girls everywhere. So as I'm really busy, I'm giving her time to rest. I'm spending time with my girls. I got 2 French bulldogs. I get home from dropping the girls off. I sit down and play with the doggos for a minute. And then I hop into the 7-hour call funnel. Wow. So yeah, my business is flourishing. I have plenty of calls, but I still create time for me to exercise time. I mean, me and Miss Caitlin, the girls are competitive cheerleaders. They have cheer 5 nights a week. So she's back and forth. Tuesday night is our date night. We have to get the girls by 9 p.m. at the gym. They have a ride there. So we finish our last call and we do a group call together with our women's group at 4 Mountain Time. We get done at 5, from 5 to 9 every Tuesday. Our friends know, they don't call us. Sometimes we just veg out because we're so busy all the time. Sometimes we go to the mall and shop. Sometimes we go to Costco and shop. Sometimes we go to a nice dinner, but I protect that time. So again, it's not balanced by any means, but it's harmony. And going back, the trifecta, I mean, anybody I work with, I have them create their own goals, but I want them around those 3 areas. You have to have financial goals to grow. You have to have health and wellness goals to grow, and you have to have self-love. And everyone wants to work on their relationships with other people. Like you know, Brandon, it starts with you. Sure. I work with a lot of husbands and wives, and if I get on a call and the husband starts talking about the wife, I'm like, that's great. That's her. What about you? Because all you can change is you. And it's funny. I've worked with people freshly divorced, and I've worked with people trying to improve their their marriage. The message is the same. Mm-hmm. Make more money than you've ever made, get in the best mental and physical shape of your life, and love yourself more than you ever have. And watch the magic happen. If you're in a struggling marriage and you do that, your marriage is going to get better. If you're single and looking for your next, you're going to find your next partner, right? I mean, it's really that focus on you, your money, your health and wellness, and your relationship with you that creates your own reality.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you enjoy the 7 hour of Zoom calls every day, or is it getting taxing? Are you feeling overwhelming, or do you feel like it's good?
I want to have more impact. So I find a frustration with, I want to help more people. In order to do that, I either need to hire more people or work more. I'm not willing to work more than I already do. I already work enough. So the work itself is fine. Like, I actually love my work. My clients, I mean, we literally hang up, love you, man, love you. Like, I don't know many people that their customers tell them they love them. Every single, I'm big. I learned this from Jack Canfield. Humans need touch. And there's some study years ago that Jack Canfield talks about newborn babies, if they're not held within the first few months, will get sick, and they could pass from not being held. So Jack says you need 4 hugs a day for survival, 8 hugs a day for maintenance, and 12 hugs a day. I have my 8-man masterminds that I run, and I've got 2 retreats. We hug it out. And it's so funny because, like, some of these gentlemen, Shawn, I've never hugged anybody. I don't hug. My dad didn't hug. We don't hug. I'm a hugger. You get in a room with me, and if we do a little breakout, all 8 gentlemen hug each other. Yeah. And one of my buddies in the group, he texted me 2 days ago, and he said, I'm so excited for the spring retreat. I said, me too. He goes, I need my 11 hugs. So that's fun.
Touch.
Yeah, it's important.
Massive.
And some of it, I mean, when I was alone, I had a weekly massage. I wasn't dating anybody. I didn't have my kids to hug. I was literally alone, and I had learned from Jack Canfield the importance of touch. Yeah. And I'm like, I at least need to get a massage. I at least need something with interaction with and not inappropriate massages. Sure. I wasn't going to those places.
Of course.
But
just human touch.
Human touch, yeah.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
Massive. What causes you today to be the most anxious?
Oh, this is actually, if you're okay, I wanted to kind of dive on this a little bit because
of course,
anxiety is an interesting subject, right? And I know for me, my mom had anxiety, my grandma had anxiety. I had anxiety. I don't feel like I have anxiety today, and I'll kind of share with you why. I thought it was generational. I thought it was genetic. I now believe a little bit differently with my mindset work, that I think it's a little bit of a program. And this is my take on anxiety. And when I was a business coach working for that contractor network, I flew every other week. I was flying somewhere to do a training. And I was thinking a lot about my mind, and I was thinking a lot about anxiety. And I had this intuitive thought one day as I was sitting next to a window seat, let the jet engines, before you take off, they start powering up. And for me, when I get anxiety, it feels like a jet engine powering up. The only problem is, instead of taking off down the runway, when I get anxiety, it feels like somebody put a cap on the engine and it's stuck inside my chest. And in that moment, and it's funny, I did a podcast for teen moms with a lady, a therapist I met, and I'd never tested this with a therapist, and I was a little nervous. We did it live on our podcast, and she actually loved it. I'm like, that checks out with what because, therapists in the medical world have very programmed ways of doing things. But I said, anxiety has a negative connotation in society, right? You now have, when I was little, we didn't talk about anxiety. You have 5-year-olds telling their moms they have anxiety because it's so prevalent. Anxiety is just your power trying to get out. And since I reframed this in my mind 5 years ago and said, you know what, Shawn, when you get anxiety, it's your power. How do I get my power out? Sometimes it's just exercise. Prehistoric man would get chased by a tiger, and he'd either fight it or run from it, the fight or flight response, to get the cortisol, to get the hormones out of him. I can have a text message from a client that feels like a tiger, right? And then I just sit at my desk and it sits in my body. So when I wake up anxious, sometimes that's just stress hormones telling you need to move. So that's my first advice with anybody with anxiety is get to the gym, right? Move around, get it out. Then the second part of that, when I was in a bad relationship, I had a lot of anxiety. I was giving my power to the bad relationship. When I was working with my dad as a business partner and it wasn't working anymore, I had a lot of anxiety. I was giving him my power. So the other times in life when we have anxiety, what conversation do I need to have? Where am I giving my power away? Because anxiety is us trying to control something we can't, and then overthinking about it, winding up our power, and then not giving it anywhere to go. So that's my take on anxiety. I do not let many things get me anxious anymore. I've done a really good job of identifying. Again, I exercise, I cold plunge, I do the heat to move toxins through me. So I try and get my body physically out of stress. And yeah, the other concept on this, anxiety comes from thinking about the past you can't change, worrying about the future that you have no control over. And if we get present every day, it removes anxiety too. I mean, a grateful day is a good way for me to get out of anxiousness. If I'm anxious about something and I listen to a grateful day and I say, wow, that's a concern possibly, but I don't have to worry about it today. So I'm going to do today.
Cool. I like it. My brother went to the Byron Katie event back in November, December, and I hadn't heard Byron Katie ever say this before, but she said at the school that anxiety is energy. And I've never heard that in my whole life. Because we always put a negative connotation on it, like, oh, I'm anxious, and you're all fired up, and you're, like you said, you're like a...
Yeah, I called it power. I'm going to change that, actually. Here you go, give me another good word. It's your energy trying to get out. And if you cap your energy, that doesn't feel very good. Your energy, if we turn the light switch off, we're going to be in a dark room, right?
Sure.
And when you're trapping your energy, you're turning the switch off of where it's supposed to go and send it where. I mean, sometimes it's an uncomfortable conversation. Sometimes it's yelling at somebody if you need to, right? But that's how you get the energy out of you.
Yeah, I read or listened to something like a week or two ago. Maybe mentioned this in the last podcast. I can't remember, but a guy was talking about as a kid. This was an 80 or 90-year-old guy. He says, I would walk 20 to 25 miles a day. I'd walk to the grocery store. I'd walk to school. I'd get home. I'd go play in the park. I'd walk to my friend's house. We'd walk to the grocery store. Then we'd get done. We'd go watch a movie. And he said, when I got home at 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock at night, I was exhausted and my mind was so still that I just wanted to sit on the couch and be.
Yes.
I wasn't depressed. I wasn't worried. I wasn't anxious. And then I listened to this guy say all that stuff. And then I look at us in today's day and age.
And we sit.
We sit in front of our computer. We sit on the phone.
We sit in our vehicle driving a lot.
We use DoorDash.
Yes.
We don't get rid of our energy, and then it builds and builds and builds and builds, and then we don't know what to do with it. So we call it anxiety. We call it depression.
And then we get medication to numb it, and we keep doing it, and it gets worse. No, it's funny. So my dad, Ralph, his original business partner that Norton's was named after, he was Ted Norton. He outlived Ralph by 20 years, and he was older than Ralph, but he moved to southern Utah. He passed away a year and a half ago at 88 years old. But I moved down there for a year when I was trying to find myself. So 2018, me and one of my twin daughters moved down there, and my twin daughter had anxiety, right? Her mom has anxiety. I have anxiety. We all have anxiety. I now think I know why, and so I'd shared with her, but I'll remember I was sitting with Ted Norton, and here's this 80, he was born and raised in Price, Utah. Coal miners, farmers, and I was talking about anxiety and how I was trying to find a therapist for my daughter, and I remember he just looked at me cross-eyed like I was crazy. He goes, what in the hell are these kids having anxiety for, Shawn? He said, when I was a kid, we were too damn tired to have anxiety. I got up at 5 a.m. and had to milk the cows, and then I had to walk to school, and I had to walk home, and I had to change my clothes, and I had to go out in the yard, and by the time I was done, I didn't have time to have anxiety. I was too damn tired. And it is true. If you're suffering from anxiety, you probably do first and foremost is move.
That's what I wrote down here. Like, what's the, story here? Well, you got to move more.
You do have to move. Yeah.
And
it doesn't take that much either. You don't have to become a CrossFit enthusiast. That's great. But you could do 15-minute walk a day and get the same mental result for yourself.
You can go walk around the block, go walk around the neighborhood. You don't have to crush anything. Just move your body.
Yeah.
Get rid of some of that energy, but we're trained to sit home and
stew on it.
Stew on it and play on our
Netflix
phones,
and chill and TikTok.
You're anxious, you pick up your phone and get on TikTok, and then you watch the movie, and then the mind settles, and you turn TikTok off, but the energy's still there.
Yes, and it's still stuck. I love that. I'm going to use that. Yeah. It's stuck energy, right? It's energy that wants to move out of you that you're not letting out, and then you're overthinking it, which is creating more stuck energy. We could rabbit hole that.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm this wound up energy bunny.
Yeah. And anxiety is always, worrying about it. It's a future.
Yeah. It's funny. I was listening to an old Earl Nightingale recording from like the 60s. And I don't know how much the percentages, but he said 98% of what you worry about, you shouldn't be worrying about. And it was like 40% has already happened and you can't affect. 40% 28% you have no control over, and 28% doesn't even matter. So there's only 2% of what we have anxiousness, and that actually is, and you can probably do something about that. So I think about that a lot. Don't worry about these things we can't control, because in reality, we really can't control much, but our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions.
Yeah, for sure. You were a little bit religious growing up, and now you're spiritual.
Yeah.
Human being.
Yes.
Do you believe in Satan, and does hell exist?
So I'm not going to sidestep that, but I'm just going to. So I believe in energy, and I believe God is energy, and I believe God is white light energy, and I do believe there's dark energy. Now, we call him Satan in religious circles. I don't necessarily call him that. I just say there is dark energy. And as far as hell goes, I don't know what heaven looks like, so I'm not going to say I think I know what hell looks like, but
Does it exist?
not in the way it was programmed to me in religious terms, no. I think, and again, you said heaven's on earth. I know people that are on hell on earth right now. So does hell exist? Yes. And I'll get vulnerable here. I've got a homeless brother in Las Vegas, and he is in hell right now. He is in hell on this earth, and he didn't control his mind. It's funny because he's Ralph's biological son. He was born with both parents. He never was on welfare. He never struggled. I was always jealous of him. He's 9 years younger than me. Blonde hair, brown eyes, smart as shit. I mean, that kid could memorize sport pages. He's almost like Rain Man with his brilliance. And he started using marijuana in high school. It got worse. Before Ralph passed, he finally cut him off, but it should have happened 20 years ago. He was enabled. And do I believe hell exists? Yeah, my brother's in hell. He somehow ended up on a Greyhound bus from Salt Lake to Vegas right about the time my dad passed. And he hasn't been able to get back. He didn't have ID with him, and they won't let him. And he's been homeless down there for 2 years. And he's called me a couple times. I've sent him tents. I won't give him money. I've sent him food. I've sent him tents. I've offered to get him. I mean, when Ralph passed, there is a little bit of money for him to help him. And I've had conversations with him and said, hey, bud, Dad left you a little bit of money. You have to get clean. You have to get a job. If you'll do that, we can probably get you a place and get you started again. And he's chose out. So he's in hell on earth. That's probably a different answer than you expected, but that's...
In your perception.
Yes.
We don't know where he's at, really.
In his perception, he's in heaven, I think. He loves drugs. Okay. He loves Vegas. Yeah.
I mean, if wherever you're at, it's where you want to be.
Yeah. That being said, I mean, the last 2 months ago, I got a call from a nurse at a hospital in Vegas, and she said, hey, is this Shawn? Yes. Are you Ryan Feurer's brother? Yes. We think he might have been hit by an automobile. He's here at the emergency room. Can you come down and get him? And I said, ma'am, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm in Utah, and Ryan's homeless, has been for 2 years, and his parents are both dead. He doesn't have family. I said, can I talk to him? Because I haven't heard from him in a year. He used to call me about every month. It's been about a year. I was worried if he was still alive. And she said, he's back in x-rays. I'm going off my shift. I'll try and call you. I'll try and stay and wait till he gets back. Well, she called me like 15 minutes later. She didn't say a word. I picked up the phone and she put it on speaker, and I heard hell on earth.
Really?
And they were kicking him out, as always happens. He has no insurance. There's no money to have, so they're not going to help him. He wasn't actually hurt. He was just trying to get off the street again.
Yeah.
And I said, bro, Ryan. And I actually got him to calm down for a minute. But then, I mean, and it is my perception, but what I heard sounded like hell. It sounded like a miserable human being that hates himself, that just wants to not be here anymore and is stuck in stories of addiction and mental health issues. And
and I'm not arguing that he's in hell or in heaven, but we can't know where he's at because it's his mind and we don't know how he processes information.
Yeah. And I don't know, Brandon, I
feel like some people like being homeless. I chatted with a guy one time that was homeless, houseless.
And happy?
Well, he had a guy lived above him that said, hey, I've got a truck, 1999 Ford. It's only got 80,000 miles on it. You can have it. Took him to get new shoes. Told him he'd hire him and give him a job. And the guy said, I don't want the truck. I don't want a job. I'm happy doing heroin once a day, and that's really all I care is I get $20 and do heroin, and I get a meal here and there. But the guy's like, literally, I can turn your life around and give you A, B, C, D, F, and G. And the guy literally said, I don't want it.
Wow.
So then you just sit back because then I'd go talk to him a couple times, but just to get his mind and where he's at. Obviously had a rough upbringing. He had a crazy life, but I don't know. I think you choose your life. And those homeless people, maybe that's where they feel like they thrive. They're unemployed. They don't have to get a job. They just have to wake up and do nothing.
Well, and there are business executives relaxing that we would think were in heaven, and they're miserable.
They're in hell.
Yeah. They don't like their life. They hate their job. They're stressed out.
Yeah. They're millionaires and billionaires, and they're living hell.
I mean, to me, and I love Byron said, energy, right? Because it's all energy. So when you ask me about heaven and hell, I turn it to energy and I say God's white light, darkness is dark light or lack of light, right? It's darkness. Sure. And so I'm just always, and even if you look about like addiction, heroin addicts, cocaine, they take drugs to get in a very high vibration that might feel similar to God's light. And that's the trick of addiction. I mean, I have a weird perception on addiction, but I think addiction is people chasing God, looking for the feeling of that, and finding it in substances, finding it in pornography, finding it in something that imitates the vibration of light. Because as a human being, you get that dopamine, that rush, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is really good. It's not, but it's mimicked in what looks like or feels like light. So yeah, it's a trick. It's funny. My sister Raven, she nicknamed me in probably high school or college. She started calling me the warrior of the light, which it didn't really resonate then as much as it does now, but I do call myself, and one of my affirmations is I'm a warrior of the light, and I'm always looking for the light because when I do meditation and prayer, I protect, and this might come from my Mormon background because they used to teach us that if we ever felt Satan come in, that we commanded him to leave, right? Mm-hmm. I do command dark energy out of my space. I have zero space for dark energy. I am only looking for light, for positive emotion, for the good things in life, and I don't have any space or tolerance for negativity, for darkness, whatever you want to call it. That, to me, that is hell. I have experienced some hell on earth dealing with toxic negativity, dealing with doomsday. That's not heaven on earth. That's hell on earth.
Sure. If you could install one piece of advice, like in one of your children or just in a human being in general, what would the one massive piece of advice be here on this planet?
I mean, advice or knowing?
Whatever you got. What would you share?
I would
you really care about to know that would benefit their life.
That they're enough.
They're enough.
Yeah. I mean, I recommend all my clients, and I say it every day, I am enough. I am always enough. I've always been enough. And all suffering that I've seen at some level comes from lack of enoughness inside. In The Science of Getting Rich, Wallace T. Wattles has a chapter called The Impression of Increase. And Bob Proctor made it one of his programs. And Wallace has a quote. It's a long one. But it basically states that every living organism that God created wants more food, more shelter, more love, more appreciation, more life. And so if you think about it, we're all programmed from birth to want more, but that is what creates the lack. As a kid, when you score a goal, your dad says you should have scored 2 goals. If you score a touchdown, you missed the tackle. We're always being told we're not enough. And like with my 4 kids, and if they ever heard these words, I just want them to know that they're enough. They don't have to go to school. They don't have to get a better job. They don't have to call their dad more often. If they just knew they were enough, showing up powerfully as them, they would live a better life. If I would have known at 20, before I got married, before I went down my whole 20 year of trying to validate on the outside, if I just would have known, you know what, Shawn, you're enough. Yes, you can make more money if you want to. You don't have to. Yes, you could buy a bigger house. You don't have to. You are enough as you are. So, and I don't know how you could do that, but that would be my magic genie, is that human beings would have the inner knowing. I listened to, on Apple Music, there's a motivation. It's called David and Goliath. And it's really powerful because the guy yells at it. And he talks about how David was undersized. His weapon was not the weapon of choice, but he had God in his heart. And he ran at the Palestinians. He ran. And then he says, all you have is all you need. I think about that a lot. When I was rock bottom, I wanted someone to throw me a lifeline. If I could just get a loan to start a business, if I could just get someone to help me with this 1 month make my bills, and it never came, but all I had was all I needed, and that was me. And that was the enoughness, and I had to find it. So anyway,
Figure it out.
that's my answer. Yes.
It makes me think, don't you think, though, that the way that this life's set up, we're supposed to not believe that we're enough? Isn't that part of the program?
Probably.
Go back and find it all?
Yeah, because I believe before we came here, we knew we were enough, and that got erased along with a bunch of other knowings. And I think it is the path and the journey to find yourself. I just wish I could have found it at like 20. Yeah. I think it's cool to keep it from us for a couple decades, but 50 years is too long to not know you're enough.
You're arguing with reality.
Yeah, I am.
You found it in the exact
perfect
right moment in time.
Yes.
At 40 years old,
and
or 42, or whatever you found it.
I still battle my ego there.
That was priceless and perfect and on point.
You'll like this. This is a quote I share because I have a lot of 20-something clients that are just drivers like I used to be, and they want it all now. And I have to talk about patience and persistence, but God's timing is always perfect. Sometimes early, never late. And I wanted it. I mean, I still would want it when I was 20. I'm still going to ask for it. I mean, we talked earlier. You got to ask for it. I'm going to still ask this reality to give my kids knowing when they're 20 and not make them wait till they're 40. But God, light, whatever you want to call it, does know better, and it does happen in your perfect time.
It really does.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I agree with you 100%.
For sure.
It's like the baby chicken that if you break it out of its shell, it's going to die. It has to break itself out. Yeah. We have to break ourselves out.
So you've done quite a bit of work here on the mind, body, ego stuff. What are your thoughts on the ego? Like, how do you decipher if the ego's coming in or it's your true heart self coming in? See, thoughts are always bubbling all the time, right?
Yeah, you might be able to help me on this because, like, Bob Proctor doesn't talk about the ego ever. No. Like, in all my mindset work, he talks about there's a conscious mind, which is 5% of your daily thoughts, and there's your subconscious, which is 95%. So for me, I've spent the last 5 years, the subconscious mind is pre-programmed, it's patterned, it's full of thoughts, habits, and beliefs that are from the past that aren't true. So my daily battle has been finding my thought, not the programmed subconscious. And my thought is when I quiet my mind and allow space for a new thought. I don't know, have you ever done the hand exercise as far as programming goes?
No.
Here, let's do this for a second. I learned this from Jack Canfield. So we take your hands and just clasp them how you naturally would. Now look down and notice which thumb's on top. Mine's always my right. Mm-hmm. Change it. One finger, opposite thumb on top. That feels weird. Mm-hmm. What do you want to do? Go back.
Yeah, go back.
So if you think about that, and your subconscious mind told you how to do this.
Sure.
And if we tell it to do it this way, it wants to go back.
Yeah.
That's how programmed we are as human beings.
Sure.
The food we eat, the things we think about love, relationships, sex, all the things. And so for me, I've worried and not focused on the ego because it wasn't in my experience, but I was focused on 95% of me is coming from these programmed thoughts, and they're creating results I don't like. So I'm just going to go to work with the power of auto-suggestion and affirmation and reprogram what I do want. More self-love, better abundant thoughts. And maybe you can help me. I don't know where the ego fits in that between. Is the ego part of the conscious mind?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's all noise, right? And words. And, you know, Byron Katie loves to use the ego. It's just a way to explain the negative thoughts and thinking pattern. I personally don't think there's a separation, but it's easy to describe. There's you, and then there's your ego self, which may be same as the subconscious program mind.
Yeah.
But it also appears to me like that subconscious wants a life just as bad as you do, right? And so it's always going to be feeding you these negative streams of, hey, you're not enough. Mm-hmm. What about this? That's scary. Don't do it. You're a failure. You can't succeed. You're not smart enough. You're dumb. You're blah, 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 blah. But I feel like that if that subconscious mind / maybe the subconscious mind could be
the ego.
See,
to me, then I have to ignore it because it's programmed with shit that's not true and not mine.
But can you ignore it?
Yes. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of the tools I use, like Jack Canfield taught me this. If a thought comes up that is a worry or something I know isn't a good thought,
Yeah.
I say cancel, cancel.
Cancel, cancel.
Some people put a rubber band on their wrist and flip
Just
it.
flip it. Yeah.
Yeah.
on the wrist.
And what are you doing with that?
Yeah.
You're repetitively programming. I mean, this probably won't translate well for listeners, but just for our conversation here. Remember I told you we don't know what our mind looks like?
Sure. That's one of my questions that I was just going to ask you, but I skipped over it because I ask everybody that. Where's your mind is one of my questions.
Okay. This is, and I've made it my own. I made the body a heart, but this is, and literally in 2019, Brandon, I was attending contractor events. I was looking for tools to help my contractors with mindset, and there weren't any available. And I've done behavioral profiles. I'm trained in the DISC. I'm trained in the behavioral motivators. I went to Profit First for money training. I couldn't find a tool for my clients. And I woke up, I was living in St. George. It was 3 a.m. And I listened to a lot of Wayne Dyer when I was listening to Esther Hicks. And he talks about the angel hour.
I love Wayne Dyer.
Yeah. If you wake up at 3 a.m., Wayne said, get out a piece of paper and listen, right?
Right.
So I woke up at 3 a.m. and I got up and nothing was coming to me. And I don't turn on the TV and I don't turn on my computer in the middle of the night. I just know I'll go down rabbit holes. I won't go back to sleep. I ended up on my laptop. I have screenshots from the webinar. I don't know how I got on the webinar. I've checked my email. I've checked message. I don't know how. I don't know if I got on social media for a second and that led me to it. But I got on this 3 a.m. and because Bob was worldwide, it was for a group in Australia, but it was pre-recorded. So I literally made coffee and was at 3:30 watching Bob talk about the stick figure. But this is the visual for the mind. And he got it from a chiropractor that came up with it, I believe, in the 60s, Dr. Thurman Fleet. And the chiropractor was medicine treats from the outside in. They find the symptom and treat the symptom, but they don't go to the source. So this was designed to find the source. Bob took this and used it for the mind and said, we're trying to treat the symptoms of your bad results without going to the source. So let's find the source. So this is it. You make the head big.
Okay. So he's drawing a picture of a head for listeners that are out there.
Yeah. And then
a great big head. Then he drew a body.
And the head is broken into two parts, the conscious mind and the subconscious.
Okay.
There's the unconscious too, but we really simplify it for this diagram. Conscious is responsible for 5% of your day. Subconscious is 95%. And you can Google, there's lots of statistics on this. The subconscious can multitask. It has way faster processing capacity. It is where all the paradigms reside. The habits you have, they don't come from your conscious, they come from your subconscious. So then we say, and the mind, this is what it looks like here. It's in every cell of your body, right? But as it takes the information, it sends it to your brains. But we're using this as the mind. The mind uses the 5 senses as the eye to the world: touch, taste. So right now, information's coming to you and I. Even this coming to you right now. You're seeing it. You're hearing me. An idea comes. It comes to the conscious mind. The conscious can't accept or reject. That's why I said I am in control. I can say cancel, cancel, and bounce it. But if I let the thought come in, it then goes through this filter of what I believe about time, money, sex, relationship, goes to the body and comes out in an action that's in alignment with my subconscious, or maybe the ego, if we call it that, which creates my result. Most of us are programmed from birth to look at a result and take an action based, and we spend our whole life out here. That's what I did for 40 years. That's where it starts. And when I'm working with a sales rep who's the most he's ever made is 70 grand, and I say, dude, you're earning 70 grand because you think that's what you're worth. I can get you making 140 grand. I can get you to double your income. I can get him on board for 5 minutes or 15 minutes, even to give me their credit card to buy my program. But then what happens? The subconscious gets involved and they end up stuck at 70 grand. It's the same with if I weigh 180 and I try to get to 200, I stay at 180. It's the subconscious mind that holds our thermostat for income, for self-love, and for relationships. So then we say, well, what if I want different thoughts in my subconscious? Like you said, how do I get rid of them? Well, they got there originally through spaced repetition of thought or emotional events. That's the only 2 ways. So if I want to reprogram them, sometimes hard to create positive emotional events, but we can, and we can have cool people come into our life that help with that. I've had people believe in me and encourage me that have helped me with my self-love. But this is where the silly process of I am statements comes in. If I want different thoughts, if I say I am something like the Universal Mindset Disruptor for 90 days, and my subconscious, which can't, and this is the other crucial part of this, it doesn't have the ability, once your conscious lets it in, like my mom was beautiful, she never thought she was beautiful. And I always say, if my beautiful mom could think she was ugly, we'll believe anything, right?
Sure.
We'll believe anything. So my subconscious mind believed I was a bad dad, believed I was a shitty husband, believed, guess what else it'll believe? I wrote I am a good husband every day for 5 years until I met Miss Caitlin. I had to create it inside of me before I could live it on the physical. So every single day, I look at the result. I say, I don't like that result. I don't take action. I say, what is holding me back? What's in my mind that's running a program that's keeping me stuck here? And everything I do is attacking. And maybe it is the ego. When we're talking about this, I think the ego is probably the program mind that tries to get in the way and say, nope. And again, if you think about it, Bob said the subconscious mind is trying to keep you efficient and safe. Your ego tries to keep you efficient and safe. Sometimes it tries to keep itself. It wants to protect the ego so it looks better, so it goes to safety. Ooh, this is going deeper than I thought. This is giving me a new understanding of it.
Yeah, and I like that too. So if you go back to like Byron Katie's thing is, all the trauma that's stored in our subconscious mind. The reason she does worksheets is because that's how you reprogram your subconscious mind. You go back to an event, you question the event, how it took place, how it transpired. You look at it from a 360-degree angle, and then you realize that subconscious thought that you believed
wasn't true, right?
Wasn't true.
Yes.
So that's exactly what she does with her work. Is that you're going back and retraining your subconscious mind. And she says all the time that when you understand a story that took place, like Joe lied to me, when you get to the bottom of it and realize that you're the one that's lying to you about what Joe said, then that unravels the worrisome thought that's stored in the subconscious mind. And now you can perceive and see differently when somebody approaches you or you have another experience where lying takes place.
Yeah.
So that's what Katie's doing, is she's removing 95% of those painful thoughts
with
by
her
the work
process
that she's created.
And Bob,
that's the only way I know how to remove them. Like if I go, okay, I'm having a bad day, and I go cancel, I'm still kind of having a bad day. Like I have to go in, spend an hour on this one traumatic event.
Yeah. Figure out the paradigm or program that was put into you by it.
Exactly.
And then reprogram it to a better one.
Exactly.
That's so crazy. And again, we were talking about the similarities in what we do and even our story as contractors and life. Yeah,
it's very similar.
Yeah.
Training to what you're doing and what you're teaching. It's just a different tool.
Yeah.
To go about removing the fear, the pain.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've heard this. I get this feedback from my clients all the time, and I'm all for therapy and psychiatric work and all the psychiatrists, that sort of thing. But I hear all the time, Shawn, what you do works better than what my therapist was doing with me. And I have people get off medication, stop drinking, stop smoking pot. And it's because we don't go into the event, we just identify it. And I think that's what you do with your worksheet too, right? Like I don't have to go back and talk about how shitty it felt to have my dad leave. I just said, my dad left. The story I told myself was I was a piece of crap son. Why would he leave me? I'm not lovable. And then I say, and I use, the words you gave me. Is that true? Do I absolutely? No, I don't know. That's true. I'm a good kid. And then I say, well, my dad had his own story, and his story was that he couldn't be married to my mom. He couldn't afford to pay child support. He left. It had nothing to do with me. Oh, so I am lovable. Yes. I'm just going to start affirming I am lovable, right? So it's a very similar process, just in a different approach.
Different way. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's cool. Absolutely. Who do you most admire on this planet?
All right. So I want to answer this, and I want to kind of tread lightly, because I've literally had some people that I've triggered their subconscious tell me I have a God complex or that I'm too self-absorbed. But the person I most admire right now, and again, this is hard. I admire God. I admire my beautiful wife. I admire my children. But in this whole self-love, I admire myself, man. And not in a cocky, arrogant way, but in a very humble, very grounded. I've had some challenging things. I mean, I've got a good friend, Matt Blanchard, who's been paralyzed 2 times. He's been taken to his knees by life in 2 automobile accidents, 15 years apart, and he can't, he's in a wheelchair. And he's the most humble and grateful person. And I admire him a lot. But he would tell me, Shawn, you got to value you. I mean, me and him do a lot of work together on mindset. He's part of some of my groups. He'd be a great guest for the podcast too, by the way. He's such an inspiration.
I just wrote his name down. I'm just going to tell you that. Like, I need that guy's number.
Yeah, Matty B I love him, man. He's definitely one of my top people. But no, I admire myself, man, and I have to admire myself. And this goes back to enoughness. If I'm looking, and I have lots of people I look up to. I mean, Jack Canfield is still a friend of mine, a mentor. He's huge in personal development. Bob Proctor, I really admire. I mean, I've got, celebrities, football players, like people I admire, but I admire me because I've done a lot of work on being a genuine, humble, gentle man. The word gentleman, a gentle man. And I work really hard to fill myself with love so I can give it away. I work really hard to make plenty of money so I can give it away. And yeah, I mean, people like Matt physically had more challenges. Me and him have had debates, and he said, Shawn, and he was part of the friend group. And literally, man, I had people that I'd loved and cared about for 20 years blasting me on social media. I was being called a cheater and a liar. It wasn't true. I had my best friends. I mean, I was living in Chris's basement, and he came down. He goes, "You going to the party?" I go, "What?" One of our friends was having a 50th birthday party. I was the only one not invited. And I sat in that basement and cried, man. And Matt said, Shawn, I'll take my wheelchair over what you went through. And I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal, but I've been through some, hard shit. I mean, I didn't talk about all the details, but, with my ex-wife, she sued me for more money when my dad died. I did a hearing on Zoom the day after my dad passed away. I mean, I was literally in tears, and I'm having to battle. And they'd found an affirmation of mine online where I said, I'm so happy and grateful. I'm a $1 million consultant making $83,333.33. And I had to watch my attorney crumble as they called me a liar and said I was a fraud. And I'm back there going, it was an affirmation, Google affirmation. It's something you say that's not true. I'm not a liar. I'm an affirmer, right? I mean, literally, my mom dying, my kids being, I've had some tough, and I admire that I made it through it, that I wrote a new story for myself, and that I'm living it authentically, powerfully, and vulnerably, and then I'm actually sharing it with other human beings and trying to give other people the opportunity to live the same way. So I hope that doesn't sound like I'm a cocky, arrogant,
well, it's a beautiful
full of
answer.
myself.
It's not typical, but dude, you're really all that exists here. Everybody else is an imagination that shows up in your mind, but you're a survivor.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, you did this on your own. You figured it out. You grinded. You did your work.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can say that, you know what I mean? There's a lot of people that transition to the other side that never go through this process of self-realization.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, the only goal here is to come here and try to attempt to find out who you are. I don't know if we ever get there. I know I'm still a work in progress.
Yeah.
But, just going down this journey that you've gone down, I mean, kudos.
Yeah.
And you should be proud of you because you're the one that did it.
Yeah. And it's funny you said, Matty B, he's like, Shawn, you're grinding harder at 50 than anybody I know, and you already did the work, and you're still doing the work, so give yourself some credit. So, and like you said, too, it could sound like a God complex or like I'm really egotistical. No, I realize that I'm the center of my universe, and if I want to love and give it away, I have to take care of me, and the more I take care of me and admire me, the better dad I am, the better husband I am, the better coach I am, the better human being I am. So, yeah, I do say that in a very humble and hope it doesn't come across that this dude just a self-absorbed thinks he's everything. No, I know I'm weak. I know I've had my challenges, but I'm really proud of myself. It's funny. When I was going through the divorce and living at the Ross, Chris was great, and Tara Lee would come over and visit. And I remember I was loading my car, moving stuff by myself, and she came up to me, and she probably doesn't even know how much pain I was in at the time. And she said, don't you have anybody to help you? And I remember telling her, oh, I'm good. And she left. And I was like, I didn't at the time have one person I felt like I could call and ask to help me move stuff. I mean, I threw stuff away in dumpsters instead of moving it because I didn't have anything to haul it in, and I didn't want to ask to borrow.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Damn. What is one small act of kindness that you'll never forget when you were going through that living hell?
Oh,
you got one big one you can share with us?
I do. So my stepdad's Ralph, his sister Sylvia, my aunt Sylvia, she worked for our company for quite a few years, and she's had her own struggles. She lost her husband to an auto accident. She lost her oldest son. You might remember, it was quite a few years ago, but he drowned in Timpanogos. Her husband was with him at the time, and he kind of went into depression and ended up in a car accident that we think at some level was related to depression. And so she'd been through a lot, and she was always grateful that I worked with her. We paid her. She had a lot of time off. She had some health issues. And when I was going through my struggle, she was one of my biggest rocks. She was one person I could call just to lean on. And she asked me to go to breakfast. I think this was 2000. It might have been 2016. And I was broke and I was sad and I was all alone. And she took me to breakfast and she gave me a pep talk. And then she handed me a Christmas card. And she left. She said, don't open it while I'm here. I'm like, that's weird. And I went out to my car and she gave me $1,000. And
holy cow.
And for me right then, that was like $100,000. I mean, I was paying $500 a month rent for Chris's basement, and with child support, and obligations, to have somebody hand me an envelope with $1,000, and it wasn't about the money, it was the gesture and it was the love behind it. Oh my gosh, that was a game changer for me. I'd been asking for a lifeline, I'd been asking for help, and that cash, it was $100 bills. I was like,
holy cow.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
What was her name?
Sylvia.
Sylvia what?
Yeah, Sylvia Fenton. Yeah, I love my Aunt Sylvia. Such, she raised 3 boys by herself. Those 3 boys lost their dad and their older brother, and they are 3 of the most amazing kids. She told me one of her secrets. I'll share this. She said, Shawn, I told all 3 of them individually they were my favorite.
Yeah.
And growing up, each one of them, and they all knew that she did that, but she wanted them each to feel special, and she instilled that in them, and I use that. I
use that all the time. My nieces and nephews are like, why do you always say that we're all your favorite when we're with you? Because when you're with me, you're my favorite.
Yeah.
Like you love the one you're with.
Yes.
I give you all my 100% full attention.
Yeah.
That's being present.
Yeah, it is being present. But yeah, that was probably one of the biggest.
That's so cool. Have you thanked her since?
Yes.
So she knows how thankful you were for that gesture.
I should call her now. Yeah. And the coolest thing too is, she knew me in 2014, right? She saw broken Shawn, and she would tell me, Shawn, you're going to get through this and you're going to be thankful for this. And she was one too. She would always tell me, go to service. You're depressed. You don't feel good. Go help somebody. Go. And luckily my work is helping people. So I would just lean into my work and try and help more people. But yeah, now she's my biggest fan. Like when I call her to check in, she goes, tell me how good it is. Tell me about Caitlin. Tell me about the girls. Tell me about your house. Tell me about your business. Wow. Yeah.
How did you know Sylvia? She's
my aunt. She's Ralph Feuer's sister. Yeah. And she worked for Norton's for quite a while. She was our office manager, bookkeeper. Yeah.
That's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, no, it's very grateful for her to this day.
That's really neat. What's your biggest fear?
Oh. I don't know if I have a biggest fear anymore. I mean, when I was younger, I was afraid to die, and I've eliminated that fear. I'm actually excited to transition. I do affirmation work every day to live to be a happy, healthy 100 years old. So I want to spend another 50 years on the planet. But I know when it's my time, I no longer fear death. In 2017, when I was all alone, I was listening to Gary Vee on social media, and he said, take your biggest fear, pick a platform, go live, and share your biggest fear. So in 2017, my biggest fear was to be all alone, and I was all alone. I was living downtown. I'd finally gotten financially to a point where I could afford my own place again. I got a downtown loft apartment overlooking downtown, the city lights and stuff. And I was sitting there looking, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get on social media and tell everybody I'm afraid to be alone as I'm all alone. And I couldn't get him. I mean, I tried to clear that thought and not do it. I'm kind of competitive. When a challenge gets offered, I have to take it. So I took the challenge and did it. And it was transformational for me. I got online. I immediately got a ton of messages, phone calls, and support. Like, hey, you're not alone. I'm going to get emotional. And through my process of being alone, and I really strengthened my relationship with my Heavenly Father, I was never alone. I just felt like I was alone, so I no longer fear that. And in mindset work, I teach and I practice what I teach. Fear isn't real. Danger is. And the ego and the subconscious mind try and create fear where there isn't really danger. And for me, I do a good job of asking the questions. Is this something? Like for me, the 2008 recession was hard, right? And we've got some signs in the economy. But I'm a different person, and my finances are different. I'm not afraid. And so I do feel like I've eliminated my biggest fear because I identify what's real and what's not. Now, that being said, this is just coming to me. This is an intuitive thought. Alzheimer's scares the shit out of me. Like, I think and my grandpa had it, my mom had it. So if I had to say one of my biggest fears is that something happens to me that takes my mind away. I mean, to watch my mom, I didn't rabbit hole on this, but perfect health. She looked like I look young for my age. My mom looked really young. When she died, she was physically perfect. Her heart worked, all her organs worked. She just lost her mind. And I took videos of her talking about what it felt like as she had Alzheimer's to not know who she was. And I still watch them every once in a while just to remind myself of her. But I would hate that. Like that's something, and I don't want to give that any energy right now because I believe thoughts are things. But if I had to pick one, if you said, Shawn, you can't not have a fear, I do have a fear of that.
And maybe too, we spoke offline a minute about Alzheimer's, but thinking on that, if you have the ability to question your crazy mind, your crazy thought and thinking patterns, maybe you would never experience Alzheimer's because you have the tools that mom didn't have.
And yes,
to be able to handle,
to think my way out of problems instead of give into them.
Yeah, you've got a way out. You know, these tools aren't taught here on this planet on how to take care of self. Mom didn't know what take care of self means.
No, and we did talk offline. I'm so passionate about my work because one of my mom's downfalls was she was the best mom in the world, but that's all she was. And when the 4 kids were out of the house, she lost purpose. She had a doomsday husband that just talked negativity. And I've Googled, Louise Hayes has a book, The Spiritual Meaning of, Dis-ease in the Body comes from dis-ease in the mind. And my mom gave up. And I won't give up. And that's the other thing too, like my fear of death, my fear of disease. I'm a big believer that God keeps us here if we're fulfilling his purpose of why he put us here. And my work is fulfilling my purpose. I'm helping people. And I feel like if I put enough emphasis on purpose, he's the only one that can call me home, and I'm hoping I do good enough work while I'm here for the next 50 years that he wants me to stay here. Because I know when he calls me home, there'll be a reason for that. I just want to give him enough reasons to keep me here that I stay healthy, happy, and whole.
Who benefits most from all of your work?
Me. Me. I do like the validation. I mean, man, my work, I wake up every day to thank you texts. I mean, speaking of Matt Blanchard.
So cool.
A week ago, he sent me the kindest, most loving text I've ever received of gratitude, of thanks, bro, for being you. You inspire me. And this is from a guy that inspires me beyond belief. And that's that loop of positive gratitude and vibration that just puts us in a good place.
That's lovely. You mentioned the economy. Just get a little sidetracked. What are your thoughts on the economy and what's going on in the world? What does construction look like in 12 months?
The one thing about the home improvement industry is there's a need for it. And we have all kinds of interesting things with, like, is there a housing bubble? There's such demand for housing right now. And there are so many old homes that need work. When COVID hit, the whole home improvement industry panicked. And I went in. I mean, I just started my consulting business. All I had was contractors. I went back to 2008. I thought I was going to go out of business, right? And then I had to talk myself out of it. So my take on the economy is we might have some challenges ahead. In my group with Mindset, they keep telling me I have a cold because if I say something, there's a programmed answer that always comes out. But one of my guys came up with this. There might be a recession coming. I choose not to participate in it. And that's my take on the economy. And we talk about we're the creator of our reality. Mm-hmm. Is there crazy stuff going on? Yes. Even in our political system and even in our socioeconomic. I mean, there's lots of division. The people that I influence and the people I work with, we choose to create our own reality. And, I've been encouraging them for the last few years to pay attention to their finances, to not over leverage, to make sure they have resources. Me personally, I'm good. I can last quite a while without income. Like I was in a mess in 2008 and I told myself I'd never be that. I mean, it's interesting. I did a group call today. We do a networking call on Friday and I'm part of a Facebook group for American Express Platinum holders. And for me, one of the things that killed me in 2008 is I was using my Amex cards for points to travel and they cut credit lines without notice. And when you have $150,000 from your supplier on a credit card and it gets cut to $20,000 and the next month's bills are due, that puts an immediate, and right now, American Express is canceling and lowering credit lines. Everybody's talking about it on that group. And even in my contractor group, 2 of the guys have already had their lines cut, and 1 has a request for financials. So to me, where there's smoke, there's fire. So there's some warning signs. So
there is.
There's a big coach here in Utah. I'm sure you might be aware of Shawn Whalen. Have you heard of Lions Not Sheep?
Yeah.
He talks all the time about getting your house in order. Like some of his message is a little rough around the edges, and he's got his client base. And Shawn, in 2016, on my flight home from Cancun, when I decided to leave my marriage, he said, your ex will have the gun, you will have the bullets. And that was good advice. I mean, I do take a message and pull what I can from it. And, I've pulled a lot of good nuggets from him. But get your house in order. I mean, I believe in food storage. I believe in protecting my home. I believe in having cash reserves so I can make it. And to me, if and when a recession does hit, me and anyone I coach, work with, associate with, they're going to be ready for it. And, more millionaires were made in the Great Depression. The Great Recession, if I could have bought a bunch of Apple stock when it dropped like it did, I wasn't in a position. I now am. I'm going to be looking for opportunity. In Bob Proctor's work, I'm trying to remember. There's the Chinese word for, I think it's crisis, is 2 brush strokes. One is for danger and one is for opportunity. And in every danger, every challenge, there's always opportunity. So to me, if the economy gets challenging, maybe there's some real estate deals to be had. If it gets challenging, maybe I can take more market share from my competition. And so, yeah, I do think there's some things to be concerned about, definitely. But I don't get into fear. I say, where's the danger? And I try and protect myself from the danger, which the danger is cash flow, running out of money, running out of food possibly. You look at COVID, we couldn't find toilet paper. Ralph Feurer, when COVID hit, that guy had enough toilet paper for 6 neighborhoods around him, right? And I had access to it, so I wasn't worried about toilet paper. I just go to my dad's. When I lived with him, I didn't go to Costco the whole time I lived in his basement. There was a closet that had toothbrushes, batteries, toilet paper, anything you needed, he had in that cellar. And I just shopped there for about a year because I knew he wasn't going to use it all.
My thought on that is during COVID, I didn't go buy anything extra because I knew it was just fear being produced by the social media.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about anything. We didn't go buy extra anything because I'm like, all that's fear-based.
Yeah.
Trust me, we're going to be okay.
I ran out of
I have to wipe with a leaf or something from outside in the yard, that's okay.
I ran out of toilet paper.
I
ran out of toilet paper. I was a bachelor, so I didn't have a lot on hand.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that worried about it either. And I'll never forget, I went to the Smiths. I was living in Cottonwood Heights, and I went to the Smiths, and there was no toilet paper. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I found some, and I actually posted on social media, me with some Charmin with an I'm like, I found some toilet paper. But yeah. And again, the whole COVID thing, it was about fear.
Of course.
It wasn't about danger. And I don't want to get into a political, but even the immunization, that was all fear-based. And you had to ask yourself, what's the real danger? And I never felt like I was in any danger. I had asthma as a kid. I was probably one of the high riskers. I was not worried at all. And I
thought that was one of the most neatest experiences that we've ever experienced here on the planet. Just home with your family, your kids, you're in your house, everything's okay. I mean, we didn't have any financial worry or restraints. I guess I can't speak for everybody, and obviously some people lost some loved ones, which I didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything happen at all that was negative, but it was just an opportunity to be.
I wish I could go back and do it again, because I would just start my business and I was still pulling out of scarcity, so I didn't enjoy it like that. I was a little bit worried about my finances, but
I loved it.
Well, now I got Caitlin. I kind of wish we'd shut down for a week or two. I'd love to stay home with Caitlin, the girls.
If you remember how clear the sky was and there's no cars on the road.
The traffic, when you would drive, you felt like you were...
Airplanes were empty.
Yeah.
You could sit anywhere you want. I mean, it was beautiful. All in perception, right? Don't get me wrong. I know some people struggled and got sick, and it was nasty.
I mean, there's still people wearing masks because of it, right? And still in fear. But you, because you had knowing, because you had your house in order... You enjoyed it more than I did, for sure.
Yeah, maybe so. I guess I was one of the fortunate ones.
Yes.
If you could give one piece of advice to your future self, what would it be? One piece.
To my future self.
Yeah. What advice would you offer to yourself? And
you just played a mind trick on me, because I'm used to giving my younger self advice.
how about your now self? If you could give your now self a bit of advice, what would that be?
Just be more present in every moment. Not because I'm still a human being or human doing instead of a human being sometimes. Like you heard my call schedule and everything, and everything I've worked so hard for, I have, and I don't want to let time slip away without just being present, enjoying this moment, this time. So it would just be more present, and I try to do that, but you can always do better at that, right? Wherever you are, be there.
Love it. Any advice you want to share with the listeners before we wrap up that may change the way they deal with their daily stressors?
I think the last one I'll share, it's a concept I got from Jack Canfield, and it kind of sums up everything I do. I wear it on my wrist every day. It's the mathematical equation to stay in control of any situation. It's E plus R equals O. And this has been so impactful. One of my best clients, best friends in my business has this tattooed on his wrist in his dad's handwriting. This is the concept. The E stands for the events in life. We have to let go of control. And I spent 40 years trying to control things I couldn't, and it created a lot of suffering, a lot of challenges that I shouldn't have had to experience. So the first step is let go of the E. The events are going to happen, the weather, the economy, everything we were just talking about. And that's challenging. We got to start there. The R is what we have control over, and it's what we add to any event. And there's one of two R's. Reaction, which is emotional and from the ego and from the program, which creates usually a negative outcome. Or we pause and we respond, and our response creates the outcome. And I practice this moment to moment all day. Events will happen that surprise us, that we didn't plan on. And if we react, we create a bad outcome. If we respond, we create a better outcome. And it can be as simple. We talked a little bit earlier. You know, I've got to the airport and realized there's a way longer security line. I was in Florida on New Year's Day a couple years ago with my wife and our best friend, and we'd run a retreat. And we got to the airport, and there's a 2-hour security line. And it's like, nobody's making these flights. And I looked around, and so many people were stressed. The reaction was to be stressed. The reaction was to go yell at the agents at the desk, right? I paused, I looked around, and I decided to respond. I said, hey, ladies, let's bail. Let's go get some breakfast. Let's see if we can get a later flight. If we can't, let's go grab a hotel. We got a really late flight, so we actually got a hotel and went and vegged out. We'd ran a retreat. We were exhausted. We turned it from being a bad thing to it was so relaxing. Yeah. You know, road rage. Somebody cut you off. You know, this happened last year on 106 South. Father of 4 got cut off by a young kid, got pissed off, followed him off, got out of the gas station, got shot and killed. That reaction and the response is, that kid's an idiot. I hope he's racing to see his mom at the hospital, right? My thought about every event creates my outcome of every event. So that's my takeaway. Practice E+. And when you start using this, I can't tell you how many clients, they call me and said, Shawn, I had an E plus R equals O moment, but I reacted. But I caught it later, and I came up with a response to fix it. And when you first start practicing this, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to catch yourself and realize, oh, shoot, I reacted there. I could have responded. And then you can go back, and then moving forward, you'll get better.
Yeah, that's great. So E plus R equals O, O equals outcome. Your events are created by your reaction or your response to the event. And that's what creates your outcome.
Yeah, and we control the R. We don't control the events. You know, if we go into recession, I'm going to respond the way I told you I'm going to respond. I'm not going to react.
Yeah, recession equals opportunity.
Yes.
The way you spoke.
That's your, and for you,
right?
COVID meant a reprieve for your family. That was your response. Lots of people reacted and had a horrible time. You had a response, and you had a good time with your family, and that's a way to respond to everything.
Really cool. Another R could be reflect.
Yeah. Wait,
on the event.
And you do have to pause. I mean, that's the one thing when I'm teaching that, you got to push the pause button because the reaction comes fast from the subconscious and the ego, and it wants to take action. You know, the other night I had a text from an associate of mine that I reacted. I got pissed. It was 8:00 on a Monday. I'd worked all day. I was trying to relax, and I shouldn't even have looked at my phone. Again, the event happened. I reacted. I looked at it. I got upset. I might have punched the couch a few times. Miss Caitlin might have said, Shawn, what are you doing? Chill out. I was reacting. I couldn't control it. When the ego goes off, and you know, when you see red, you see red. And I had to breathe through it. And then I woke up the next morning and I responded. I literally texted him. I said, stop texting me. I'll answer you tomorrow. I need some, I was like, I need to create some space to respond. Otherwise, I'm going to freak out and create a bad situation here.
Love it. Good answer. How could the listeners, if they wanted to contact you or follow you, what's the easiest way for them to find you? What should they look up?
Yeah, so I do have a website that's connected to all my social media and all my podcasts. It's www.shawnf360.com. It's kind of like a link tree. You can save it on your phone as a contact. My website's shawnfeurer.com. And then on all platforms, I drop free information on this every day. I do lots of short videos and reels on mindset, on gratitude, on self-love. So it's Shawn Feurer, ShawnFeurer. That's my handle on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Cool.
Yeah.
Any questions you have for me today?
I'm going to save those for your episode.
All right.
I just want to thank you, first of all, for your impact on my life by the work that you do and those couple questions, how impactful they were. And then you continue, and I mean, you're semi-retired. You could find lots of ways to spend your time, and you choose to spend your time having people like me share stories, and you're having a huge impact. So keep doing it, man.
Thanks, Shawn. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, too.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Time is so precious here, and especially with our busy lives, and for you to take a couple hours out of your day today, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. So
I was honored to have you on.
Thank you.
So, one thought today, guys, after hearing our discussion, and we hit on that anxiety is energy. And so, for those of you out there that are listening, go move a little more. I often bring up the thought that go push yourself as hard as you can for like 3 to 5 minutes and really elevate your heart rate, like 3 or 4 repetitions, and notice the natural high from the endorphins you get throughout the day. I'm a huge fan of moving. I obviously could move more. I'm not walking 20 or 25 miles a day, but my goal this year is to hike a whole bunch, to get up in the mountains more and move and, go on some 2, 3, 4, or 5 hour hikes. And hopefully you guys can do the same. Go get some of that energy out of the body. And then obviously don't forget to question your mind. You guys know I'm here. Anybody that's looking for a way out of your crazy mind, you guys know where to find me. Anybody that's looking to better or is struggling with their business and you need a business consultant, you can find me also. Check out themindsgym.com. I'm also, as you guys know, a real estate agent, and I just built a new website called skipropertiesutah.com. We're just currently starting this week to market a little, so hopefully I'll have a little more success with that. And thanks, guys, for listening. It means the world to me. If you have any feedback or comments, I'd love to hear them. I'm always open to feedback. So thanks again, and thanks for being on, Shawn. And I guess I'll be on your podcast here in the next few weeks.
Yep,
we'll see how that goes.
We're going to get that. I can't wait. This was such a good conversation. I can't wait to dive into your work and your story and share that with my listeners.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing yours. We got a lot of similarities.
We do.
We didn't cover everything, but boy, our stories are very similar. Very similar.
We may have to do some hiking together this summer and
absolutely
bond on it.
Whatever it takes.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, guys. Have a beautiful day, and I'm your turbo lover, and peace out. I want to thank you so much for listening, and there is an immense amount of effort that goes into this podcast. I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Remember, if I survive my crazy mind and thoughts, so can you. If you are struggling, asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. Please follow us at The Minds Gym on Instagram and TikTok. Peace out for now from your friend, Brandon Bickmore, your turbo lover.